Preach that shit.
I'm very fearful to talk about it because the slightest wrong thing you can say could offend someone.
Fuck them.
But I have tried my hardest.
On this podcast, we say, fuck them. Ain't no haters gonna hate on this podcast.
No, I'm serious though. Like, speaking out about like the Black Lives Matter movement is uncomfortable for me. I can't say that it's not. As a white person, talking about, you know, like, obviously Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives fucking matter. You can't say it enough. But I feel like, you know, this is the first year of my life that I've realized this is something that I can actually speak out about. This is the first year of my life that I've realized I have enough of a voice that I can say something and people are going to listen to it. And that's, again, tying it back all around. Why I originally even got into fashion is because it is expression and being able to say something without saying anything at all. And so, you know, maybe for the majority of my life prior, I felt as though, you know, the only sole form of expression for me, since I couldn't use my voice, was to put on some crazy clothes and feel good about it. Now I'm like, I can wear those crazy clothes and have people like that and also have something to say about it. Yeah. And I'm hoping that I can do that with my next collection. Put some words on some clothes to make people think. Because fashion is politics. Fashion is everything. Everything is everything.
Culture.
So you can always tie it back around.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to another episode of BINDLISM, a philosophy to a self-sufficient lifestyle. This is episode 55 with the one and only Chloe Schnell. Chloe is a fashion designer who grew up in the Syracuse area, went to FIT, and has really showcased her uniqueness in her approach to fashion as well as her aspirations to affect the fashion industry in the future. She is very much a future-forward thinker and creator. I'm really excited for everyone to, you know, get a taste of the fashion world. This is the first time we've had anyone who is a fashion designer, and I think this is going to be a really nice addition to the different stories that we've told throughout this podcast. We talk everything from what's wrong with the fashion industry to what's new and how fabrics are made and how to be sustainable with fashion. It's really cool. We talked a lot about some really important issues and topics, including things like how Syracuse will form into a budding city in the next 10, 20 years, and how this could really be a haven for creators such as ourselves. Really excited for this one. I'm not going to spoil anymore. Thanks for listening. This is episode 55. We will see you in the podcast. Enjoy. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you think about what we're doing, if we can do it better, who we should have on the show, any of that stuff. It really helps. Again, this is episode 55 with Chloe Schnell. Enjoy.
Flight 55.
We will be departing from Syracuse Hancock Airport and landing at O'Hare. Yeah, who the fuck is Hancock?
Like, why couldn't
And why is it in Syracuse? Like, why couldn't it be like Otto the airport?
Otto the orange
The fuck?
airport.
Alright, we don't actually need these.
Alright, action.
Episode 55.
Naive. I'm actually excited.
Mine's a little loud.
And it's back to back with Chloe Flores.
Another Chloe. So 2 Chloes in a row.
Yeah, singularity.
Yeah,
synchronicity.
episode 55. Welcome to the show, Chloe. I know we've been trying to do this for a while, but then the world literally fell into Armageddon, so
Yeah,
we
that
kind
was
of put that
crazy.
on hold. It was not a good time for anyone to really be
Yeah, it's
expressing themselves.
It's hard to sit and talk about yourself. I mean, it's easy to talk about yourself, but when you're surrounded by cameras and mics, it's you have to have a certain level of confidence about yourself to be able to do something like that. And I was just not in that place when we tried to do it before. And I think all of us were kind of on the same page.
Yeah.
Because there was just so much going on in the world.
To give everyone some context, when we tried to do our podcast with Chloe the first time, this was back in the height of the Black Lives Matter movement starting to kind of come about. It was probably a week after George Floyd had been murdered, so there was a lot of shit happening. There was marches happening outside the day of, like right when we were about to podcast.
I was late because I was recording them coming down the street.
Yeah, they stopped right in the intersection right outside our building,
Held
and
up some cars.
it was kind of like, maybe we shouldn't do this. Like, there's something bigger than us happening right now. So I definitely think in like the moment we were all kind of like, what do we do? But I think it was the right decision for sure.
Yeah.
I think everyone would have been a little distracted
Totally.
during that, because they were there for a while too. So
Yeah, and the thing about Syracuse, I feel like, the conversation hasn't died as much, but maybe the outdoor protests have, just because of the weather, like it gets cold, people are cold outside for long periods of time. But yeah, over the summer it was definitely really interesting to see like how our city came together, because like my brother lives in Portland and he was telling me about his experience, and that was completely different than what we got to experience here. We're very lucky to live where we do. I mean, at least for how
As far as like our safety goes, is that what you mean?
It's hard for me to say as a white woman, but at least from what I saw at the protests, it seemed like, for the most part, we didn't have to fear militia police or.
no, I don't think that happened at all, really.
Remember how people were talking about how there was like buses of people coming from.
Oh, Antifa's coming.
None of that actually ever happened.
Yeah.
It was all just talk. But I do think, there is a chance that Syracuse could be targeted because of that, like for being such a peaceful, progressive
Because we're liberal.
city.
Yeah.
So I think that was maybe where that idea came from, like the fear of that being a possibility. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I guess just zooming out though, what are your thoughts about Syracuse? And maybe we could just start off with that approach.
It's very interesting because I will say I did not see myself wanting to stay here for a long period of time until I moved here.
So Chloe also lives in the gear factory, for anyone who's wondering.
Yeah.
Gear gang.
Gear gang. Mostly because I think, at least for me, it's easier to make connections here. It's smaller. The art scene is pretty condensed, like everyone knows everyone, and when you need to get something done, all you really have to do is just like make a post on Facebook or Instagram and just have your friends reach out to you, and then you can like make shit happen. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
There's not really that ability in the city, which is where I lived right before here. Well, after being in my parents for a bit, but yeah, it's just there in New York, it's more of like you're just a fish with a bunch of other, like a school of fish who's trying to do the same thing, and you're all swimming in the same direction and like pointing the finger of who's copying who. And
Right, yeah.
whereas like, I don't know, there was this article written about me while I was in school actually that said something like, why aren't you in your mom's basement creating the next big fashion brand or line or something like that?
Directed to you?
Yeah, it was supposed to be some BuzzFeed article about, like, the different schools in the city, and instead of talking about the school, they posted a picture of me, and, like, I remembered the guy who took my picture, and I wondered if he was the one. Anyway, that doesn't matter.
Because you remember that specific picture being taken of you?
Oh, yeah, he stopped me and was like, hey, can I get your photo for Style of the Week? And I had, assumed that was what he was doing it for, but...
Sneaky journalists.
Guess we can't actually trust them journalists all the time.
But the point of the story is I paid attention to what they said. I mean, partially because I had to, just I ran out of money in New York and needed to come home.
Shocker.
But
that place is
also,
not
It's
cheap.
not an easy place to survive, especially as a young person in the current economy. It's just very difficult. But, yeah, I took their advice and went home to my mom's house.
Like,
and
you know what? Thanks.
I was
You
like,
know what?
yeah, you're right.
I'm gonna go home.
I'm gonna go find a cave and I'm gonna go be creative, and then I'll pop back out of that cave when I got something to show for. which
It's not necessarily a bad idea. Save money.
yeah,
Well, or just spend less money
yeah,
to get what you need to get done.
totally.
So, why don't we go way back a little bit and
Back it up.
kind of explain? So, Chloe is a fashion designer, and that's why you went to New York City. So I'll let you get into that. But why don't we start with like where you grew up, how you got into fashion and art and any of that stuff, and kind of what led you to end up in New York City?
Hi, my name is Chloe Schnell. I was born in San Diego, California. Yeah, if you want me to start all the way back from the beginning,
whatever details you feel are important in the story.
If we're keeping it strictly to fashion, I've
Or
been
just anything,
into
just-
fashion since I was 2.
Okay.
My mom said that, like, I would throw fits if I didn't dress myself. Like, if she picked an outfit for me, I would, like, not. I remember it being a struggle even when I was, like, just a little kid. But anyway, yeah, I've always had this, like, need to express myself, which is interesting because a lot of times that's taken as, you know, this obsession with vanity equals, like, you know, being shallow or only focused on the exterior. But it's so much more than that for me. So I've been also shopping at thrift stores since I was like 9 years old. And fabric and clothing, it all holds energy. You know, it's like, it is a physical thing. It makes you feel a certain way when you wear it, like, or look at it, depending on the color and texture. And I think I really first noticed all of those things while thrift store shopping. It kind of developed my love for it in a sense, because, you know, now I can go to the thrift store and I just, like, I scan, like, probably 2 feet of a rack and just look for the colors or prints or patterns that I like. Because, like, I don't know, it's just very interesting. I also like creating stories for clothes that I find, like, something that's really cool, like, I don't know, some suit from the 80s, or, like, this dress even. This is, like, 80s prom, handmade. I'm like, I wonder who made this. I wonder if it was, like, you know, someone's grandma for their, I don't know.
Yeah, what was it used for as well?
Yeah,
Was it prom or is it something else?
Was it a wedding dress? I don't know. I can make the
Quinceañera?
Yeah, that would be pink, but
Close
you know,
enough.
yeah.
Maybe I'm
true.
colorblind. Maybe they were colorblind.
Well, you're right. I don't know. Yeah, very señorita, but
It's like it's like the salsa dress in the emojis thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The girl like.
that's actually
That's
the
you.
first time I did a photo shoot with this dress. I had her do that move because I wanted to use that emoji
It's
when
so
I posted
relatable.
the picture.
But
So,
yeah,
thrift store shopping.
through like your whole process of being creative with fashion, you slowly start to develop like your style and the you that you want to express through clothing. Could you give us a general idea as far as what your look is, what your style, what you gravitate towards?
I'm a chameleon, and I always want to be, because I think just like the same reason I don't pick a favorite color. I mean, for the most part, it's pink, but if I stick with one thing too much, I'll end up getting tired with it eventually, especially with how I externally express myself. Because, you know, with trends and things, people always eventually catch on. And if the whole point of expressing myself in a different way is to be different, then I'm going to be, you know, moving on from these things that I'm finding that
Growth.
I enjoy. Yeah, I think the fashion industry is the quickest moving in that sense. And, you know, growth in the fashion industry may not be the best thing just because it's like, you know, mass produce garbage pretty much. But, yeah, sorry, I keep losing my train of thought. I feel like yeah, fashion.
Yeah, fashion.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Freedom
This-
of fashion.
so I'm sure
Of
some
fashion.
people who are watching may not know you. How long have you been like at what point in your creative self or fashion self did it take before you were like outwardly wearing things that maybe when you were younger you wouldn't necessarily have worn out in like public? For example, like what you're wearing now is like super cool and expressive, but like would you have worn something like that in front of people, say when you were in middle school, high school? Like what When was that transition, really?
I think it was kind of just a gradual build of self-confidence, because you do have to create it for yourself in a sense. It's not like, you know, I just went to school in these crazy outfits and was like, I look great and everyone's gonna love it, because like for the most part you're getting dirty looks because you're trying to be different, and people don't like different, they like conforming and
Same.
normalcy. Yeah.
Hive mind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it is kind of like a build thing, but I started getting more expressive with my clothes and probably when I was like 12 or like middle school. So that time, by the time it was high school, and the fact that I was like already starting to do runway shows and stuff, people kind of just knew that that was my thing.
So
and
they weren't questioning it as much.
Yeah, I mean, I went to FM. Chloe also went to FM, so I don't know if she talked about that at all. But it's a very small town type of deal. You know, everyone dresses the same and does sports and all these different things. And I always kind of didn't really feel like I fit in with that crowd ever since I moved here from California. I was kind of just like, felt like an alien in a sense.
How old were you again? Sorry, you might have said.
Yeah, when you
No,
moved
it's okay.
here.
I was 8 years old when I moved here.
Okay.
So you would have been like close to, if not like middle school.
Yeah,
Right.
I was in. I
Yeah.
started
like, what,
second
like,
grade here
before
because I was
middle school.
homeschooled in
Yeah.
first grade and kindergarten, and then
Yeah, that makes sense because
I
you're like
started in public
5-ish when
school.
you're in kindergarten. Like
5 or 6.
Yeah, so that makes sense. Okay. It seems like such a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, how old are
We're
you
going
when
way
you're
back.
in middle school? You're probably like, what, 7? No.
what are you, 12 when you start school?
I just have no concept of time, apparently.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were 8 when you moved here, which isn't necessarily an awkward age because you're still, that's like a little bit before puberty, right? So that's
I
like when
think
shit
8
kind of hits a fan.
Yeah. Well, I think 8 is a very interesting age. It's a very cognitive age. Like you're
Starting to figure some stuff out.
Yeah, you're starting to understand the real way the world works, and you're, you know,
Right.
for me it was kind of like, I don't know, I would say like when I turned 8, I had some like shocking realizations about the world and about, you know, even myself as a woman, or at that time a girl. You know, I didn't go through puberty until I was like fucking, I don't know, 16. Just
That's
kidding. It
kinda-
was probably like 14, but anyway. Just this shift that I was experiencing of, because it's always been me and the boys. It still is now, but like,
It's true.
with my brother and his friends, like it was always me and the boys. And like I kind of just saw this shift, you know, through puberty and like coming into myself as a woman, of like not being treated the same anymore, you know, because like suddenly like my body was a sexual object to the world in a sense. Not trying to be like, you know, angry feminist, but
You're not wrong. That's kind of how it goes.
yeah. And I mean, it's an interesting thing to like comprehend as a young child, and it's, I think, something that maybe boys don't really think about until much older, that's kind of forced on girls by age, you know, whenever their period starts, which is crazy.
Was that one of the biggest realizations you had growing up? Is that how society, I guess, views women in that kind of aspect?
Yes, I think I'm still kind of coming to that realization, because even in the fashion world, like the reason I was so drawn to fashion and into it originally is because it felt like empowerment to women, you know, the ability to like express yourself however you want, and as a designer make whatever you want, and like see it turn into a reality, which is like one of the most beautiful parts of it. But then again, looking at even still what all of the top designers are, like the majority of them are men as well. And that's, you know, sexism is still a problem in the fashion industry as well. Not the whole problem. There's a lot of problems with the fashion industry.
Yeah.
It's funny because every time someone starts a conversation with me, or they're like, where they say like, you know, how's the fashion world? I just want to be like, it fucking sucks. I don't know what you want me to, like, I hate it. I actually hate the fashion world. Like, for a while there, I was at a point where I was ready to pull out of it completely because I just didn't even know how it was feasible to be a part of something the way it's currently being run, which is the same industry as the 1980s, essentially. It's all the same. It's just more and more and more and more and cheaper and cheaper.
So something that once started as a form of self-expression has become something where it is now like brain control over our society, like
at least definitely
the consumer.
Culture,
it's the consumer and the models, and the one at the top is the one controlling that entire industry. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as corporate America. It's the same as all other industries, essentially.
It's just its own niche of like business. At the end of the day, it kind of like, that's what I think ruins fashion, is that the business aspect of fashion kind of ruins like what it's meant for. Cause,
in
like,
a sense, yes.
Like fast fashion kind of ruins fashion for me, because it's like, well, why do I need to like flip my wardrobe like so many times per year? It's like,
and
who's wearing all that clothes? Where are all those garments going?
Landfills.
Right? Because like, oh, you don't sell all of them, but you have to like move that inventory, because if you let it sit for too long, it's gonna be out of fashion or whatever.
So I'm actually glad you brought that up, because recently more and more fast fashion companies are going out of business or losing a lot of business.
People can't buy.
I'm so happy.
People can't buy anything.
People are finally listening. I had a protest at the end of my runway show in 2017, and we all chanted, "Fashion's cool, fashion's fun, fashion is for everyone." And everyone was holding signs that said things like, you know, support local business, free the nipple, you know, dumb stuff like that. But also, fuck fast fashion, and fast fashion kills, and no one's 21 forever. Yeah, all of this is very...
No one's 21 forever, like that one.
Right? But if you shop at thrift stores and you've been to any Salvation Armies lately, you'll notice that there is entire racks that are Zara sections right now, because they literally had nothing else to do with all of that inventory. They were just like, well, it's either going to a landfill or it's going to people in need. So... good thing that they made the good decision on that.
If people in need get to wear stylish shit now, I'm about it.
I mean, this is the thing, though, is I avoid fast fashion like the plague. I don't even buy it secondhand. I can't shop the Zara sections or Forever 21.
Its purpose.
I would much rather shop clothes that say Made USA in the tag and are from at least 20 years ago, because the way it was made is so much, it's going to last so much longer. You're not going to be throwing it away in a day.
Does not last.
Because the buttons are sewn on by machine. When you have something that's like, you know, well made, it'll have, there's like this button sewing on technique where you have to like spin around the button 6 times and then go back in.
Just assures it stays.
Yeah. That's why you find flannels from like 1985 that the buttons are like still, they're still intact,
secure,
as it should be, because let's not forget the sewing needle was the 3rd human invention, if you include fire as the first human invention, which if you don't, then that would mean it's the 2nd, because clothing is a necessity at the end of the day. It's for, you know, protection, warmth, sports, depending on whatever it is you may be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's a very small population of people that believe that they should just go about their life naked. So,
hey, I mean, I'm not
even
judging.
they still wear clothes in certain circumstances. So, like, one way or another, clothes is an important part of everyone's life, one way or another. You know?
Yeah, like, you know, think about trying to go scuba diving in a snowsuit. Or, like, you know, vice versa. I mean, I guess you could go skiing in a scuba suit, because people have started doing that more. But
probably better wind resistance.
Yeah, and it'd be pretty warm. Neoprene's pretty warm.
I mean, like ski racers wear pretty tight like skin suits, so I guess it's similar.
Yeah, that's
but
what
it's
I'm
not
saying.
rubber.
Yeah,
it's probably warmer. Wow. This is a very interesting, just...
Well, that's another thing that interests me a lot is textile science and just like, what goes into the creation of these new textiles that are for, purposes. I mean, I'm hoping to eventually like be able to manufacture my own fabrics and I don't know, put whatever I want into them, because you can weave
True.
whatever you want into fabrics essentially. Like,
so what is your thought on like hemp fabrics for clothes? Is that like a good way to go, or is that too
Totally.
expensive, or like what? I don't know too much about like hemp being used for clothes, so
oh, this would be so. I can't say I know too much about it either.
you probably know more
but
than me.
I am all for natural fibers. They breathe better. They're more comfortable. A lot of people have skin reactions to synthetic fibers, because at the end of the day, especially these sportswear companies like Under Armour and stuff, they just keep making their materials cheaper and cheaper, essentially. So like the circumference of the actual fiber width that's woven in will get smaller, and
To save costs.
and like the types of plastics or whatever it is that they're using in the material will also change, and it's just, you can feel the quality difference. I've been working at my parents' shop like since I was young, and I remember even 5 years ago the Under Armour being much better. I probably shouldn't be like specifically talking shit about a brand.
I don't
But,
really
Am I
care.
gonna get sued?
Who cares about the big business?
Yeah,
Whatever.
true.
They got bigger fish to, or whatever, bigger problems than
Bigger fish to fry.
There's
I've
the
always been curious
saying.
about this, but the difference between natural threads and synthetic, like how exactly do they make synthetic fabrics? Are you familiar with it? The process?
So think of like a meat grinder, like a sausage maker on a very, very small scale. So
Okay.
like it's plastics and stuff that's being
What,
basically
Smelted?
melted together and then pulled out of this thing like a filament. And then
Okay.
that filament is woven into the materials.
So one strand would almost look like maybe fishing line,
Yeah.
like a plasticky
Or
That's
even
how you get
elastic.
smaller.
like, yeah, that's how you get like the stretchy like the jeggings of the world, or where it's like super
Oh, that's
stretchy
spandex.
and
Yeah.
shit. Yeah.
But it's always woven together. It's not like when they make a piece of fabric, it's like some flat pressed piece of plastic.
Well, vinyl is like that, but they usually have a woven back. And when I say woven, it can also be knitted, which is just a different style of
Okay.
how they like
How it's
the-
gone
whatever
together.
the pattern is
exactly.
of the stitching. Yeah.
But yeah, so vinyl, I think it's painted on. I don't want to say for sure, but there's usually a woven back, and then the other side is like the right side. It's like fake leather, but it always has that like
Like a backing. to it?
fabric backing, yeah, so that
Okay.
it has some sort of something to grab onto.
Okay.
Yeah, textile science was one of my favorite classes in school because we sat in a science lab and lit things on fire.
Oh yeah, where did you go to school for the people listening?
I went to FIT in Manhattan, and I was there 2016 to 2018. Very interesting time to be in New York because it was when Trump got elected.
Oof.
It was such a dark
Great.
and dreary day that
Everyone's
day.
favorite 4 years.
I wish I could have been there like this election, because I saw a video someone took from a rooftop of just like the sounds of people cheering when the election went through. Because it was not that feeling in 2016.
Oh no, I had friends.
Everyone, it was
crying.
raining. Yeah, there was like random people on the street like crying. It was oh god,
Yeah.
what a day.
Yeah, it was an interesting time.
Those 4 years are over for now.
And FIT is pretty liberal, right? I would assume.
No, actually,
Interesting.
I was expecting, and this is my own fault, but I was expecting to go there and find like my mutuals or other people who were like, over the top expressing themselves and super creatives and stuff like that. Which I did find, here and there, but I guess I was expecting more so for it to be like my whole class. And there was still only a select few kids who would like dress up for school. Not dress up in like a sense that they were wearing like suits or anything, but you know, like put effort
Being
into
fashion forward.
Yeah, put effort into your appearance, because self-expression in my idea of it is self-love. And you know, some people would show up to school with like sweatsuits on and
like sweatpants.
You're like, you
and
remember you're in
hoodie.
fashion school, right?
yeah, and it's like I would be totally fine with it if it was like someone's like sweatsuit drop or something, and it was
Right.
like a friend's, you know, brand or something, but you could tell it was just these people like got out of bed and came to class, which, you know, whatever. I
So as far as
Yeah.
control other people, but I was just like, this is fashion school, what?
Yeah. I can totally see where you're coming from, though, because it's like you're there to
And
I
I'm
don't
in
know,
Manhattan.
Set yourself to a different standard, right? Like you want to be seen as a fashion expert or whatever, and
Instead, they were taking pictures of me and writing shit about me on the internet.
Hey,
it's fucked up.
whatever. Like you'll
Oh,
probably end up
publicity
being more
is good
successful than them
publicity.
anyways. So
That's fair, I guess.
fuck 'em.
True.
But as far as like the culture goes, was most of the people there designers, or were they like business people, or like
FBM major is definitely the biggest one, which is fashion business management.
so they were trying to be like the head honcho in control of the industry, like owning the company, and then the designers would, I guess, I don't know how it works, but
I would say more so it's the designer who's the top. Like
Oh,
the
okay. 'Cause
designer's
it's
the
usually
head.
their vision, right?
Yeah.
That would run
And
like that business.
the designer, like me, usually doesn't have a lot of business knowledge because, you know, the whole point of it being set up the way it is so the designer can kind of just like express and be the artist
And let someone else take care of the mundane
logistics.
shit.
Yeah.
okay.
And that is another thing that I noticed while I was there is it's very divided based on department and major. Like Michelle, my friend, I went to school with her at the same time and I never met her while we were both there.
How big is FIT, by the way?
It's within one block, and it's all just like
How many students would you say, roughly?
I don't know. I don't know
Like
exact numbers.
thousands, hundreds?
I don't know. Do you want me to look it up?
I'm actually I can't look it up because my phone's not here. I was just curious. I'm trying to get like a.
Yeah, I don't know for sure.
Hey Jamie, bring it up on the laptop.
Yeah, I wish we had an actual person. Dude, that's the future. When we have someone who can spit that knowledge, like, oh, thanks.
A personal assistant, some AI.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, after looking through 10 years of data.
Yeah, because an
the
AI would move
average-
like this.
The average amount, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the whole point of AI is that we're not supposed to even know like that it's AI. It's like,
Facebook
Big
is
Brother's
AI.
watching.
yeah, what?
What?
What's AI? What'd you just say? You want to say that again for the people?
Sorry, should I not pound on the table with the mics on?
No, it's fine. Whatever.
I said Facebook is AI.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yep.
That.
It's already happening. Like
Well,
we're living in it.
that's
It's
why,
actually
like,
we're just
controlling
gonna
us.
have to accept.
I was
that all
telling you
this shit
last
is
night,
changing.
right? I think that the
Probably.
government,
We're always
the,
talking about conspiracies.
that the government finally is putting out lawsuits against Facebook to break them up, like antitrust lawsuits against Facebook, which means once they go, a lot of other ones are gonna start getting probed.
Oh yeah, I saw that, and I was watching like stuff about stocks.
God, can I just give you guys some
Here we
context?
go.
Andy and Kaya love to talk about stocks. It's just all the time. One time I was in a
Economics 101.
meditative state and I woke up and Andy was there standing over me laughing. And then what more did he get into but talking about stocks? So take it away.
It's actually called
I'm going to have nothing to contribute to this conversation.
stonks.
Stonk.
No.
But they're basically saying how the stock market has potential of crashing because of the antitrust things going on.
Ooh.
And that's where all the big money is technology.
Hmm.
And so if these corporations get broken up, people are getting fearful. They're going to want to pull from these markets.
I mean, I
So.
think in the end of the day, the world kind of goes in one direction, and then at some point it kind of reaches a stopping point where all it takes is one little thing, and it kind of brings it all back down to
Domino
reality.
effect.
Yeah, but I think that's good. Like, as shitty as it will be in the aftermath of anything like that, I think what it allows is for everyday people to kind of have a say in like how things go moving
Support
forward.
local business.
Exactly.
Hell
So
yeah.
like what we're seeing is a rejection of big corporate everything, because that's how our country world has run. But what we're realizing, I'm hearing it more and more, not even just with like hippy dippy like crunchy granola people, but just in general, like
That's us.
yeah, we're the hippy dippy crunchy granola people.
And Chloe. She can vouch for
But
it.
like more and more people I hear agree that we as a society need to function more as small scale societies within, you know, a larger landmass, as opposed to one big moving society that's run by a few people that don't even fucking care about us.
Yep.
This actually wraps around into what I see as like the vision for Syracuse. I just see everything turning back to local. I mean, again, that's already starting, I think, with what's happening at Wildflowers and
Yeah. McCarthy Mercantile and all that stuff.
yeah, obviously it's going to take a while before.
But the fact that we're seeing it happen like slowly each year I've been back, it's been like, all right, something
Yeah.
new. Like you can see like a revitalization of the city in a sense.
And on a psychological level, I feel like it's a lot better for us in our well-being, because you actually get recognized and valued for the
Yeah.
skills and trades that you have,
Totally.
as opposed to getting lost in the sea of like fucking everyone in America.
Exactly.
Well, you know what's interesting? Outside of cities like LA, Chicago, like the big time cities that we all think of when we think of cities, all these other cities in the country, really their purpose served back in the early 1900s when the industrial like we're hitting peak industrial revolution stuff, like technology's booming, cars start to become a thing, and like Syracuse, for example, the only reason Syracuse was a legitimate large city at the time is because of the salt market. We were the number one manufacturer of salt in the world, and
That's rad.
that's fucking sick. But the second salt didn't need to be mined out of Syracuse to get salt, Syracuse became obsolete. And it's just like, okay, so now what? What does this
also
city
the lake
do?
getting polluted.
Well,
like,
that too.
used to be a major spot for wealthy people from the city
Yeah,
to come up
tourism.
and have like, you know, a resort getaway on the lake.
Yeah, we ain't got shit like that anymore. We
Yeah,
just
now
got a
we
bunch
just got
of
mutated fish.
yeah, and like the other thing is the whole waterfront is roads now. Like the only
It
thing
used to be like a whole
there was
boardwalk.
like a carnival and shit there.
Mm-hmm.
What's nice though is that we're seeing a more progressive mayor and county executive working together to make something like Onondaga Lake worthwhile for people to come with the park loop going around, and they're gonna finish that sometime in the next year or two.
And he's the one working with Mike to allow all this like progressive like localization to happen in Syracuse.
Yeah, and we're
too.
talking
That's
about
awesome.
Michael John Haggerty, who's been on the show for anyone listening who doesn't know.
But
Shouts
all
out
these
to
like
Michael John.
Yeah,
all
just
these
out
like
here doing shit.
small community spaces that he's like creating, like when COVID hit, to be able to move all the restaurants out to the streets
Outside. Yeah,
to
'cause
like
they
have
had
people
to,
come in.
right.
Yeah.
And
You know?
none of those restaurants had any like infrastructure to make that happen. And maybe they had some tables they could put outside, but at some point it's like people are going out to dinner for the experience. So if you're just throwing them on the sidewalk and it's not really appealing, you know, how it looks is not like you're just like, oh, you gotta sit outside now. Like,
Yeah.
you gotta, you know, spruce it up for people. And it's really cool that he was able to really like take over Armory Square in a sense. Like,
I didn't
all the-
realize that was him. That's awesome.
yeah, all of those like, what was it, Possibilities, Kitty Hoyne, and then what was it, Fridays on Walton. So Walton Street it's kind of like Armory Square was built by the same developer who built Church Street in Burlington. Anyone who's familiar,
I didn't
and
know
Church Street is 2 roads that intersect. It's a big square of downtown Burlington, but one road of Church Street is not for driving at all. You can only walk on it. And the idea is that bringing this whole idea of like shutting down Walton Street on Fridays and letting people like walk around in the streets, go outside, eat, whatever, is hopefully leading to a point where you can't drive on those streets anymore, and that it's strictly going to be reclaimed by being able to walk, ride your bike, that kind of stuff.
It'll really be like the early 1900s when people were just crossing the street willy-nilly because there was not that many cars going by.
Right. And so also with 81 being taken out of the center of the city and turned into more of a
What?
Yes. So
Oh my gosh.
for the longest time they've been talking about how 81 really ruined the demographic of what Syracuse looks like and how our communities interact with each other, how it was really rooted in like a backwards type segregation mindset to like push people of color and minorities away from the affluent areas of the city.
Wow.
And so where 81 used to be where predominant African American communities were, and they basically forced them all to like move elsewhere. So they built like giant complexes and projects for these people to move. Yeah, really fucked up. So the idea is that, well, 81 is like crumbling right now. Like the bridges and stuff in Syracuse haven't been touched in years. So they're like, we have to either completely remake these, which based on the Department of Transportation, they would have to actually widen the roads, therefore claiming even more property to.
Ugh.
So they're like, we don't want to do that because we already hate how much space this takes up and how many problems it's caused. So what other options do we have? So one was building a tunnel underneath the city, which could have been cool, but also
Let's have
like,
a subway.
let's be real. Like, one, how much traffic's really going through Syracuse? And two, how long would that really
And
take?
it's super expensive.
Yeah, so the option that they're going with is a grid system. So basically, once you come into the city limits, it becomes it's kind of like what Erie Boulevard looks like if you go out towards like East Syracuse or whatever. It's like 2 lanes with like a divider in the middle, but it's not a highway, so it's ground level. There's no bridges
We
and
all
all
know
this
people are going to
crazy
be
shit.
speeding like crazy down that anyway.
So, but also what they're going to add, like bike lanes, things that you see over by Syracuse University. So that's their plan, is they're going to take out all of the bridges and basically all traffic trying to go north or south will be diverted to 481 until you can get north of the city, and then they'll put you back onto 81. So that's the plan. I don't know what's going to happen, but the reason I'm talking about this is because it's really going to change what Syracuse looks like.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to business, like everything, like I was saying, the salt market left, Syracuse becomes obsolete. Like what else does Syracuse have besides the university? A bunch of law firms.
The dome.
Like we don't really have like anything crazy happening here that is really drawing anything. But now that Amazon just moved to Liverpool, whether or not I agree with it, we have a massive, distribution center there.
Brings in a lot of money.
That's going to bring a lot of jobs, and also it's going to make it more appealing for a business to want to move to Syracuse, because having something like Amazon be able to get you shit you need faster.
Right there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. So it'll be interesting to see the next 5-10 years really where Syracuse sits in terms of like what is bringing people here.
Yeah, totally.
There's going to be more opportunity for everyone too, I think.
I think it's really great that we're starting this now, because I think by the time those opportunities are available, we'll already like have, I guess sturdy ground in like what we're doing, or knowing what needs to happen.
And we have the network, right? We've already been here.
It's small scale enough where everyone knows everyone, and we can actually make an impact if we wanted to like band together and do something.
Yeah,
cool for Syracuse.
And I think that's a big issue in a lot of places, especially somewhere like New York where there's so many people. This sense of inclusivity and like let's do this together doesn't really vibe or click, because there's so many people trying to do the same shit that it becomes more of like I need to be better than these people if I want to get anywhere. Whereas like here with less people, there's more of an equal playing field where like you can be a fashion designer we can be, a lifestyle brand, and like we're not conflicting with each other's progress. If anything, we can help collaborate with each other to like bring each other up. So I don't know, like I think it would be a cool like kind of guinea pig experiment to see like how a city, like a mid-tier city like Syracuse, could really like become prominent again in like the eyes of the countries of the world,
and in ways that actually bring value.
Yeah.
And not just some big corporation taking over.
Like a grassroots
Yeah.
movement of the local people really reclaiming the city, because for the longest time people just shit on this place.
Yeah, I mean, they still will, and they still do. This is what I've realized about locals to Syracuse. Instead of having small talk, everyone complains to each other. That's just how people talk to each other. Because there's always something to complain about with the weather being so crazy.
Yeah, that's true.
That is one thing.
Which I guess still is small talk at the end of the day. But
What is interesting to me, though, with global warming happening, winters here are going to become questionable. Like, look at it right now. It's what, December 12th, 11th?
pretty warm outside.
And I played disc golf today in like a t-shirt. And there's no snow on the ground. It looks like, it felt like it's like, I don't know, March, So it's very interesting to see like how that affects everything. Maybe it makes it more of an ideal place for people to go because winters aren't going to be as shitty. But also with people, there's going to be mass migrations of people from out west moving towards the east because it's dry out there. Resources are being depleted. It's too many people. And New York specifically is a very hot spot for people to want to move because we have a lot of untapped resources here. So it'd be interesting to see if Syracuse becomes a higher populous city in the next 10 years. Just
I have
because of
no
what's
doubt about
happening.
that. I have no doubt that Syracuse is going to grow. I know that like there's been multiple efforts among different industries of trying to bring like tourism back to Syracuse because I mean, you were saying we don't have anything here. I think that's a lie. Because like especially with all of the small businesses.
Well, yeah, like
opening
nothing
up lately.
like big tier like major brands happening here right now.
Yeah, not yet because
Right.
they're just starting now.
But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's not a bad thing,
Yeah, so I think this is the question that I've been asking myself because as a designer, I've always dreamed of owning a fashion studio or like a fashion house, being able to have a team, a seamstress team and pattern makers and, be able to do the sketching and, send it to people who I trust and who I pay right and who I talk to and communicate with person to person because like, I don't know if I want to get to a scale where I have so much to deal with that I can't have those types of interactions because, making garments isn't fun or easy. And obviously, what really pains me is that some of the world's greatest seamstresses will probably never know their names because they're just working in some factory somewhere in Bangladesh or in China. And
just doing what someone else told them to make.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know the full extent of social cultural norms in those places. But you can definitely almost guarantee that it's for women sometimes their first job, especially like places like Bangladesh, like
at a young age, right?
Yeah, and if you're starting your job for the first time as a woman in a country that's maybe not as progressed in that sense, like you're going to listen to the man because you have to, or else you're going to lose your job and you don't have a way of, sending money back to your family or making money for yourself or whatever it may be. Even though that money that they're making is like, sometimes cents an hour, if even.
But to them, that's better than not getting paid, I mean, I guess that's the same anywhere, but like for them, especially because of the wages being so low, it's like
it's been very, very difficult to try and figure out how to ethically and sustainably begin a brand because that's kind of like what put me in this place of feeling stuck in a sense after learning about the truths of the industry and the actual negative sides and how how negatively the fashion world affects the entire world, not just in a humanitarian standpoint, from pollution and, you know, just pushing the corporate agenda in a sense, like
Yeah, and like how it affects like in terms of the working conditions in these places.
oh my god, don't even get me started. There was
I think that's the biggest thing. Like we're obviously like how much they pay their workers is one thing, and that's really messed up when United States companies outsource to these places, knowing full well that the reason they're doing it is because it's cheap as fuck. But it's like these people could like die. Some of
there
these
was a
people could
warehouse in
literally die.
Bangladesh that was known to be unstable. They knew that the structure of the building was not sound. They still sent over 1,000 people to work there every day. One day the building ended up collapsing on itself with all of the workers inside, and it was a H&M warehouse, and they were able to just kind of like brush it under the rug in the American media because people were still buying H&M. And
Yeah.
even though like essentially a mini 9/11 happened in another country, it's like, well, everything's good in America still, so you know,
Well, yeah, that
it's fucked up.
I mean, that's true with a lot of like messed up shit. Like even
We are
outside
very
of the,
privileged. All as Americans, we are privileged.
unless it has to do directly with American interests, we don't care. Or at least the media doesn't care to share it with people.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I was actually Charlie the other day put on, not the other day, it was back when the election stuff was happening, but he put on French TV and they were talking about the American election. I'm just like, why does America see themselves as like this bratty little teenage girl who gets whatever they want? Because it's like we're stealing all the attention, and like
I think it's because
everyone's nervous about what we're gonna do because we're just like basically this giant baby that's like,
Well,
I'm gonna take whatever
yeah.
I want.
America turned into well, one with our military dominance kind of makes it hard to not like pay attention to what we're doing because we could
it's
fuck some
terrifying.
people up. But also like in the last 4 years, we turned our entire government into a reality TV show because we thought that would be a great idea. And so now it's like, all right, you have a ton of military power and you have a reality TV star as your president. What else could go wrong? Just
Apparently
like,
a lot.
well, hopefully we can kind of take 10 steps back in the next 4 years, hopefully.
Yeah, can we talk about like effective COVID on like artistry and all of that? Because I feel like this is something that
So
a lot of other artists could connect with.
you want to talk about your experience with it and how it's affected like your art, and then kind of like, I guess, where you see things going, being affected with everything?
Yeah. So I definitely kind of went into survival mode when this all first started happening.
As with most of us.
Yeah, and that was kind of a common theme for a lot of people. But survival mode doesn't really allow for creativity or for that like flow state of mind, because you kind of have to be more of like an abundance mindset, or just like, you know, letting things come to you. And if there's certain walls up, like stagnant, you know, fear or
Like trying
whatever
to just pay
it
your
may
bills,
be.
Yeah.
Exactly.
get food.
Exactly. Which sorry, I have like a hair in my mouth. Yeah, so I was, you know, kind of getting down on myself a bit because it was like, ugh, I have all of this free time. Like, when am I ever going to have all this free time again? But I can't bring myself to have the, you know, ideas or the motivation or whatever it may be to actually just sit down and do it. Like, I try, and then my mind is like running, and you know, sometimes you hit this like lovely flow where like your mind can be running but you're also doing work.
Yeah.
But to find even that state of mind through the pandemic, especially with just like, you know, new news every day about different things going on,
You were unemployed at the time, right? When this all hit.
I had almost 4 jobs when the
Right
pandemic
before
hit.
it, yeah.
Right before?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I lost 3 of them, and then 1 I tried to stay on for a little bit, but it was just like the hours were not cutting it, and it made more sense for me to be on unemployment because I was getting like 10 hours a week to try and stretch out making Instagram posts for the job that I had.
And you were getting paid the stimulus too, so making more because you were unemployed, right?
Yeah.
For at least for that time. being.
Which, even looking back, I could have been even making more, because there were some weeks that instead of being able to like get through to the pandemic unemployment assistance, it would just go back to the same waiting momentarily page, and I would reload it every time, and it would just, it would either reload back to the same waiting momentarily or go to the little dinosaur guy of like, it's not working.
Yeah.
That could just be our Wi-Fi.
I don't believe it.
Nah.
I'm such a
Dude,
conspiracy person. What
I
is the
didn't
word
get
for that?
unemployed.
Conspiracist.
Yeah. Well, what?
Is that the word?
Conspiracist? Is that how you say it?
I don't know.
I don't know. No,
making
it's
up
just
words?
conspiracy theorist.
Okay.
Because you're a theorist if you're theorizing.
Yeah.
But like I didn't get unemployed during the pandemic. I got furloughed for 2 weeks while I was working at Digital Hive, and even as a furloughed employee, so I'm not even claiming like unemployment or anything. I'm just like, I get benefits because I was furloughed, and as long as your company who's furloughing you doesn't deny you getting them, because like I'm pretty sure when you file it out, you have to say you're getting furloughed, and then they reach out to your business and say like, you have an employee who's filing for furlough. Is this true or not? And are you going to accept or reject it? And they said, we're not going to reject it. I still haven't gotten that money. And that was in April. It's December. It might be a year before I actually get that money. So
I'm not surprised. Honestly, it was like,
we just weren't prepared for it.
I think that after they approved the $600 a week, they realized like that the majority of people barely make that. And so that all of these people are going to start making that and be like, whoa, this is what I can do for not doing anything.
I don't
like,
need to look for a job now.
But what bothers me about this perception of like people being lazy and sitting on their asses and doing nothing, it's like, these are people that have been working so much, so hard, all the time, to barely even make $600 a week. Like, that should show that there's something wrong here.
It's like I was working 4 jobs and barely making that, and now I don't have to work a single job, and I'm getting that for doing nothing. It's like, what the fuck?
The wage gap is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
Call me a socialist, but the wage gap is disgusting, even in our own country.
It's
and
not
our
socialist
country
at
is
all.
the richest. So
Yeah.
us, in comparison to everyone else, no shit, we're taking advantage of other countries, like
Yeah.
Bangladesh and China and these places where cheap labor is not necessarily okay, but it happens.
Well, it's really comes down to major corporations. I mean, I'm sure there's still wage gaps when it comes to small business too. Like, some business owners definitely just don't have the best interest of their employees in mind. But when you look at big business, anyone who's publicly traded as a company, the number one most important thing for every business year over year is increasing shareholder profits. So they want to make sure, that everyone who's investing in them gets a gain on their investment year over year, because they want to make them stay, because they need their money to do whatever the fuck they want to do. So inadvertently, that causes them to care more about the shareholder than their actual employee.
Yep.
So it's actually like, for some people, it's actually like a better idea to just invest in these companies and not work for them, because you'll probably make more money off investing if you have the money to invest. So it's like, fuck.
And that's the issue.
It's a conundrum, you know? It's
And that's
like,
how like the rich get richer and the poor get poorer.
because all the rich people are investing in these companies to make more money off doing nothing.
And
So
then the
it's just-
poor can barely get enough money to survive. So obviously they're not gonna have any money for savings.
yeah.
Soup kitchens can't even open right now to full capacity.
Is it because of COVID or because the money is not there?
Because of COVID, soup kitchens can't have the full amount of staff, and they're only able to do like to-go things. So people can't even sit anymore and catch a moment in the warm and have a hot meal. They have to take it to go back outside to wherever.
Shit.
It's really
It's just a crazy time. Like,
but this is the thing, is like, it's just an over-exaggerated version of what's always been happening. Just because there's more people, more
There's just
money,
an
more
added-
billionaires in the world. Like, it's all
Yeah.
the same shit. There's just more. There's just, and, we're drowning in our own material goods that we're creating for ourselves. Like, we need to change soon.
That's another thing too, is like the consumer with that mindset is about like buying material goods, which increases the wage gap, or not the wage gap, but like the financial gap, because you have these big corporations that are like managing money, putting their money that they have extra to investments, and then the consumer is not knowledgeable about like how to invest and stuff like that, and they are pouring all their money back into like buying these goods and stuff from the corporations.
So they're investing in the wrong things. Because
Yeah.
they have like the money there where they could be like, instead of buying Dunkin' Donuts every day for like 3 months straight, if you just like even cut that in half and use that money that you would have bought Dunkin' and put it into investments, you would actually make more money off that. Like, obviously.
But I get it though. I get it
Yeah.
because it's like when you're in that state of existing as a consumer that's like barely making enough to survive, you're like, oh well, I'm fucking stressed out, I just want to go get a coffee. And so you're in like the scarcity mindset where it's like, yeah, I know it's just a short-term
it's short-term fix.
but it's like I need it to get by because
Exactly.
I'm struggling so much.
That's also the issue I have with like trying to find a way to be sustainable. Like
it's not
the practice
financially
of
practical.
sustainability, you need to have enough money to be able to even begin being sustainable.
Yeah.
Like, you know, fast food and all of that is supporting, you know, people with large families who, you know, have a long day at work and then need a quick meal at the end of the day for them and their 3-4 kids or whatever it may be, you know.
I think sorry to cut you off.
No, it's okay. It's just like, as a fashion brand trying to learn how to be sustainable, it's like, even when it comes down to shipping, it's almost impossible because I'm going to have to think about the garbage from the boxes that I'm sending out, or
what
the plastic
are
bags.
your packing materials
You
that
have to
using?
literally think about everything, even down to the cutting of the fabrics, because those scraps usually just get thrown on the floor, brushed into garbage cans, and then sent off to landfills as well. So it's not just the garments themselves that are causing this pollution, it's actual garment production. Like, you know, those giant fabric knives where they like cut the fabric, like cut like, you know,
Stacks
hundreds
of
of
them,
its of fabric. All of those scrap pieces
just get tossed.
are not used, and they could be turned into something.
Right.
It's so frustrating.
Do you have any ideas of
what
how to be more
what could those
sustainable?
scraps be used for?
Oh, I mean, it's happening now. I think it's a whole, honestly, kind of revolution in fashion going on right now. Just putting things
Is that what
back
upcycle?
together. Yeah, upcycling. I mean, it's interesting because a few years ago, I probably would have been like, you know, I was kind of against just like, I don't know, upcycling things. Just because having shopped at thrift stores my whole life, I kind of saw it as like, oh, well, you know, you probably just got that from Salvation Army and then got like
and then you just flip
some
it or
fabric
something.
paint. But now that's what I do to make money. So also, I've been, you know, more so enjoying that people are paying attention to and enjoying that look of kind of like crazy prints because it's all from different fabrics. Or I, over the summer, made a couple t-shirt dresses that were, you know, original designs, but they were all just old t-shirts. And that I want to keep running with because I have, you know, now I know Drew, and also my parents both do screen printing, and there's always mess ups. There's always, you know, the t-shirts that they use as like the stuff to wipe things off of other things. And a little ink is like spots here and there. That's not going to matter if you're cutting it up and putting it together some other way anyway. Like, and that's the look that people are leaning more towards now. So,
you know, like,
finally, we're
like
getting out of the basic bitch phase, and I'm so excited. Everyone's going to start dressing crazy again.
I was even thinking, like, for example, I've made pillows for myself that are just out of shirts I don't wear. Because you can just go to a craft store and get some, like, cotton, and then just, as long as you know how to sew.
I've seen it all. I've seen t-shirts be turned into quilts. I've seen quilts be turned into sweatsuits. It's like, you know, there's this one girl that I follow on Instagram who makes all of her clothes out of just like bed sheets, I'm pretty sure, but they have like huge, like cool prints of like Pikachu and Hello Kitty, and you know, all she does is just like make the same pattern of like the same style of pants and crop top and
just
hat.
in different materials. It's not a bad idea.
It's not. I'm like in the process of getting to a place where I can start doing things like that. I have to kind of just like, sit down and go for it one day at my machine. But getting to that point is difficult.
Right.
You know what it's like sewing. Some days you're just not in the mood. Like,
it's tedious.
I would prefer not to sew as much as possible. But since I chose a career where to start out, I have to kind of, be able to know how to put things together.
Right.
If I'm going to be sending things out to manufacturers,
Quality
I need to
control.
know. Mm-hmm.
You can't.
I need to know.
Yeah.
But eventually you just want to be the designer that is hiring on seamstresses, right?
Yes, as ethically as possible. My dream, like, when this all comes together, would be to hire mostly women negatively affected by the garment district prior, or just the garment
To give them like
production.
a new sense of meaning in that industry.
Just to kind of be able to so I also want all of my employees to have a photo and a bio on my website. So
Nice.
you can kind of like,
Know who's making this shit.
then when I do tags, the person can sign their name in the tag, and you can go online and you can meet the person who made your clothes.
So this is a cool concept. So I work for Stickley Furniture, and every piece of furniture that they make gets hand stamped and signed by every single person who touched that piece of furniture.
Wow.
I love that.
And like they don't have bios for everyone because they have thousands of employees.
Well, yeah, but still.
even that sense is like that name is now going to live on that piece of furniture for generations.
Well, not only that, it's like recognition.
Yeah, like
because it's
you did the
recognition
work.
for the work done.
Right.
Because I don't care if sewing is seen as a housewife thing to do. It's the same thing as architecture. It's garment
You're making
architecture.
something.
You're creating something that has to start with some sort of structure to be able to last and be durable and
Right.
wearable. It's way more of a masculine task than it's portrayed as, which is so interesting to me. And I think this is also something I was talking about recently. This like I have like generational trauma from like housewife duties. Like I don't enjoy doing the dishes or cleaning or being forced to, I guess, cook if I don't want to, because I do love cooking, don't get me wrong. But like
It's like that being put inside of a box.
yeah, it's like because I'm a woman, I'm
it's
behind a
expected
sewing
of you.
machine.
When there's an expectation or someone else's expectation put on you to do anything, you're less likely to be inclined to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, which is something that I'm trying to grow out of because, I envy talented seamstresses. I mean, I know how to, but I could always develop my construction skills better. And, it's always about progressing, working towards building your craft, being better at your craft. And as much as I don't like sewing as a small part of it, one of my favorite things to do is draping and pattern making. So it's like, okay, it's like, devil and angel. It's like, okay, I love this side of it. I love drawing the sketch. I love doing the concept and coming up with, even like thinking through what the shapes of the dress pattern is going to look like prior to actually doing the pattern making. One of my favorite parts of it. It's like, I feel like an architect, I'm like, so if I were to take this dress apart inside out and backwards, what would the individual pieces look like to allow me to create this and construct it into an actual real garment?
Yeah.
Also a real garment that has to be put on, which is something that I forgot to think about sometimes. One of my school projects
Who's
is
gonna
this
wear
dress.
this?
Well, I mean, I will say, for this school project, it was only going to stay on the mannequin, so it wasn't really at the forefront of my mind to think about, like, putting it on an actual person. But shouts out to Alamo Mora. Thank you so much for wearing this dress for me multiple times because it is a bitch to put on. Like, the side seam zipper, I had it it's like a fitted mermaid dress, and the zipper starts here, and it goes like all the way down to essentially your knee. Because I did this, like, I wove a burlap for that dress. It was supposed to be the concept of the past 100 years of fashion. So, like, starting with 1910, 1920. For the 1930s era, I wove my own burlap and painted it red just to match the dress. But it was very, like,
Oh, so they were like in
stiff.
sections?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I could show you a picture of it. But I think I actually showed you a picture of it yesterday.
You probably did, but like you didn't tell me like the the backstory behind it.
Yeah.
So.
But anyway, it's very sturdy and stiff, and like to get into it, you have to like step in the bottom and then like come out the side, but then like shimmy it up. It's because I don't know.
So
it's
you
a
need
whole...
like actual like assistance getting that on.
You need assistance getting on all of my garments. Like, well, because like think about it.
Comes with personal assistant.
This is why I need to start ready to wear, because I need to start thinking about actual like
how to make it like functional for just like everyday.
Yeah, everyday wear. That's. I mean, I love the drama of a fashion show, so that's what I like to focus on, just because it's like fun. You can be as expressive as you want.
Well,
you
isn't
put some
that kind of
crazy
like
stuff
the
out
purpose?
there.
Is like you do the fashion show to show like the most extreme like just creative output of what that idea is, and then like you have to refine it into a more of a just like a everyday wearable thing to kind of that way to make like actual funds off of the idea.
Definitely. Yes and no, because there's I don't know if you saw that meme of Jared Leto where he like is at a Gucci show and he sees the suit and he's like, and then the next photo is him at an award show wearing it. Yeah.
Okay, so
it's
there,
like
there's
that happens,
that sense
but
too.
that you have to be like a high end, like already well known designer for that to be a likely thing to happen.
Right.
Yeah, like I was just looking actually today at one of my favorite designers, ready to wear collection, Andre Courrèges. He was a designer. He was like a 60s space age designer, so he's not around anymore. But the ready-to-wear version of his style is still somehow, I don't know how they do it, but it's still somehow reminiscent of 60s fashion, but it's still modernized, which I think is really also an interesting thing about the fashion world is, when people take over for these brands that have a person's name as the brand name. It's like, how could you, imagine being put in that place where it's like, okay, you have to take over now for Alexander McQueen. Like, whoa. Like, that would be amazing. That would be a dream come true. Running, but, like, being able to tap into a mind that was so beautifully dark and interesting and thought of things so differently in a radical way, like, being able to get in touch with that, it's almost like, I don't know, how would you ever be able to top that in a sense? It's like no one is ever going to be them,
right?
And
unless you were like I would say like the person who would be best suited would be someone who was around that person enough to know
exactly, which
insight.
is why one of his like closest colleagues / I think his like best friend or whatever took over for him.
But then even with that, there's no progression there. It's just you're trying to copy what has already been.
And then it's like, if I go off the beaten path to do something that I think would be cool, is that going against? Like, what are you doing? Yeah, is this going against what he would have done? That's that would be a lot of pressure to be in that position for sure.
Which is why I kind of, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really like Karl Lagerfeld that much. I think the last good he did for Chanel was maybe the 80s and 90s. Because just more recently, Chanel has been so over the top and color poppy and all of these crazy things. Like, obviously, they always keep the classic tweed suit because it's Chanel, you gotta do that. But I just feel like Coco was just, like, turning in her grave. Like, seeing all of these things of just, like, over the top, I don't know, not very. It was like well, because Karl Lagerfeld was known for doing this thing called cool hunting, which is what big name designers do. They go to places like Harlem, or now they'd probably go to places like Brooklyn and just watch the people passing by and sit there Yeah, like, or do sketches for their next collection based off of the people that they're watching walk by on the street.
That's honestly a good idea.
It is a good idea, but it's also like made me feel like when I was in New York, like I was just like
Being watched.
as soon as I step foot outside of my house, my ideas can be taken off my body.
That sucks.
And I felt like I watched it happen too. As weird as it is, like Jeremy Scott did multiple collections that were very similar to the things that I was both putting out and dressing like while in my
At
time
the
in the
same
city.
time, yeah.
Yeah.
And you were progressive for that culture, right? It wasn't like you were copying it from someone else. It was just you.
I had an idea for a Jackie O themed project, and this was two separate projects actually. I had a Jackie O themed project in my pattern making class, and then for my art class, I wanted to. I was inspired by Andre Courage for that one as well, but I wanted to draw all of my girls green because my professor was Black. He was talking about how you need to include more skin tones in your artwork, like to the whole class, not just me. But obviously, prior to that, you usually draw yourself. So for the most part, I was just drawing girls that looked like me. And that was the first time that I was like, why not experiment with other colors?
Right.
That could be cool, like whatever.
Flip it on its head kind of thing.
Exactly. And so when I told him I wanted to make them green, he kind of just like brushed it off and called me crazy. But then not even like the end of that year, Jeremy Scott comes out with a Jackie O themed collection where the models had colored skin tone. They had like pink skin, yellow skin, green skin, and they all were wearing Jackie O themed hairstyles and suits. And I was just like, okay, I don't mean to sound like, I'm calling Jeremy Scott out because I'm just some college student at FIT.
But it's like,
But aren't I who they're watching? These incoming students with the fresh ideas who don't realize the power of their fresh ideas yet.
yeah, because like,
Yeah,
what
that's a
if
good
your
point.
teacher, I don't know, not saying that he's friends with him.
I think he got fired after my semester. I left him a pretty bad review.
Oh, well. But just imagine, like, think about this. Like, especially fashion teachers, I would assume have some connections to the fashion industry. I would hope so. They're fucking teaching fashion.
You'd be
Well,
surprised.
I say that about, like, business school teachers, and they don't know shit about business. So,
Yeah.
But anyways, just assume that he's friends with friends of
Jeremy Scott.
just fashion designers in general. And you come and say, I want to do X, Y, and Z. And he's like, yeah, well, whatever. And then he has a conversation. He's like,
I
yeah,
had a
like one of my
crazy student who
one
wanted
of my
to do
students
X,
was
Y, and
saying
Z.
like they want to do this. And then meanwhile that designer is like not necessarily outwardly being like, oh, that's actually really good. They're like, oh yeah, going along with whatever they're saying. And then afterwards they're like, I could do that because I got the funds to do that.
I mean,
and they're
it
just
could've-
as open-minded as someone coming in.
Right. So like
you
let's make
are.
it happen. Sounds like a good idea.
Also, Jeremy Scott has openly admitted to the pressures of the fashion industry being too much, of trying to pump out this constant
That
new
you have to cling to shit.
groundbreaking new idea. Like, it is a lot of pressure. I mean, they have to every season come out with something
Right.
new and different.
Or they become like obsolete.
And big designers are doing spring, summer, fall, and sometimes holiday, pre-fall, like these weird resort in between seasons. And each show is at least 150 outfits. That's not pieces. That's like individual people that are
Jeez.
walking in those shows. So that on top of however many garments is in one individual outfit. Sorry.
What would you say would be a more healthy amount of what's the word?
Like
Like
approaching
collections
that.
being pushed out. Like how often and like how many per year would you say would be a more realistic,
Sustainable.
One.
sustainable one a year?
Yes. That's what I eventually want to work to, mostly just because me as a sole person cannot produce that much. There have been times where I did 2 collections in a year, but it was before I was worried about paying my rent,
Right.
like back when I was in high school and didn't have anything else to spend my money on except for putting it into myself as a designer. But yeah, I think, why have all these seasons? There's a global market now. There's people who are in summer right now. There are people that are
Right.
in like cold winter right now.
So there's always gonna be
Why
someone.
wouldn't I put out clothes that are winter summer, spring, and fall
All in
at
one.
the same time, because then depending on where you are, you can purchase whatever works for your climate.
Yeah.
And
That's a
That's
good point.
true.
you know, it would kind of like, I get the whole hype behind Fashion Week. It is just hype essentially, but it is really fun. I will say, like,
But like just because you're making one that maybe is a little bit more geared towards, say, summer, doesn't mean that there's not someone else who's making something a little bit more geared towards winter.
yeah, I think it would depend too on like where the designer themselves is located, because I probably obviously will design more things that are going to be suited for people who live in areas like Syracuse, because that's the environment that I'm surrounded with.
Right.
So it's where my mind is going when I'm thinking about, you know, what do people want to wear.
Also, like, if you don't have the pressure of making, say, 4 collections plus a year, you have way more time to really refine that one idea to the point where it's, like, way better than what each individual one that year could have been
Totally.
in just one. You know, it's like a masterpiece every year as opposed to, like, kind of good, could have been better, but, like, I didn't have time or I had to get it done for this show or whatever.
I wonder, honestly, if the fashion industry will ever get to a point where it wants to and can slow down to a point where they're not constantly pumping things out. Because, like, you know, everyone, at least in the New York fashion scene, is hyped up on coffee and cigarettes, and they're just like, you know, boom, boom,
Go,
boom,
go,
gotta
go,
work,
go.
work all the
Yep.
time, always working, always making money, always moving on to the next thing, you know? No time to sit and enjoy what you've actually created. Or, like,
Right.
appreciate
Nothing's ever
it's a
good
machine
enough.
that's just trying to raise capital. And
Yeah, it's a sick.
it's not
like a
it's not
sickness.
really about the creativity at that point. It's just about what will make the bottom dollar at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I think the best
Fucking
way to
crazy.
go, especially now, which I'm seeing from a lot of my fellow designer friends from college, is doing capsule collections or, you know, presentation style shows, which is like where you just have a group of people standing in a room and it's almost like an art show more so, where people can come in and depending on how, like, the style that you want the show to be, the models can interact with the people, or if you want them to not, if you want it to be more of like a performance, it could be that as well. And then capsule collections, just like putting a cap on how many items you're making of that specific thing.
Make it more exclusive.
Make it feel more exclusive, so people will want to buy it and be like, I'm the one of, you know, 100 people that owns this garment or something. Also, that cuts down on waste, both of, you know, the actual creation of the garment, and also, you know, if there's certain sizes that don't sell as well, or some kind of...
Right, you don't have to even worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, what was I going to say? Well, one, it just saves time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't have to think about the logistics if you're only making 100. Plus, the perceived value of that garment increases quite substantially when people know, like, hey, there's only 100 of these being made, and this
I wouldn't
particular dress
mind-
is fire, you know?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's funny that you say that, because I was going to design a dress that was this for the saying, don't burn your candle at both ends, and it has 2 flames on it.
Ooh.
So it's, like, actually fire.
So, pun
What was I
intended.
going to bounce off of that with? Oh, gosh. What did you just say?
That, like, it saves time, you don't have to worry about the logistics, and that the perceived value increases.
Oh, the thing about the perceived value. I want to be the type of designer that eventually, like, people are trying to resell my shit on, like, what is
Because
it?
it's a Chloe Schnell.
What is that?
design.
What is that one thing called?
What,
That
Depop?
one app. It is kind of like Depop, but it's Grailed. That's what I was looking
Grail.
for.
I haven't
Grailed.
heard of that.
Yeah, it's like I want people to be reselling
Is that for
my
more like
stuff.
fashion forward shit?
It's mostly
or-
dudes on Grailed. I'm surprised you
Isn't
haven't
it like
heard
Jordans
about it.
and stuff?
Yeah, it's like hype fashion, pretty much.
Right. Supreme.
I
But-
only really know about Depop because that's like what most of the people I know that sell clothes.
How sick would it be, even if I'm personally like not making all that money off of my own garments? How sick would it be if I sell a pair of jeans for like, you know, $200 and it's resold for like 2,000
Yeah.
or something? That would go to show, like, it would make me feel like, oh, cool, you know, people value my stuff enough that I could charge more, but also
Right.
like, well, you know, people want it that bad that they could make it that price and someone will actually buy it. I don't know.
So I mean, at the end of the
Dreams,
day,
But that's free marketing for you, because if someone sells a piece of your work for like 10x what it actually was initially worth, your name's on that though. It's like, who made this? Why is it worth this? Well, you know, this
Now they're
designer.
gonna buy more.
Exactly. And then they're going to look to you for newer stuff that you're making.
so
yeah.
what it sounds like is you're essentially trying to create a brand. Do you want to keep it as a personal brand, or is it like a Nike where it's like a community brand?
That's a tough one, because I don't really, again, I don't want to become a sellout. Some
That's
of the
fair.
brands that I respect the most made decisions that may have financially affected them in a negative way,
Because they were a brand?
but because they chose to do that, they created a more niche market for their things. I'm speaking like specifically about things like Jinko jeans. Levi's made an offer to Jinko to try and, you know, like steal their pattern or like take their pattern and make Jinko jeans Levi's. But they said no, because they didn't want them available to the general public. They wanted it to be this niche market of club kids and, you know, crazy goth dressers or whatever.
Is that kind of like Doc Martens, where it's like they have a signature product and then they patent that product around the brand, and then they just sell to that niche?
I'd say Doc Martens is also a sellout in a sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love Docs and I have multiple pairs, and I will never not buy new Docs because for the most part they're really well made.
Well, it's interesting because there's like two different paths you can go. You can go down the path where you make exclusive, really expensive stuff to pay your bills, or you make something more affordable and relatable to people and you can pay your bills that way. But then you have to do way more work because you're making way more of that product to sell. So you have to do more work in like selling, making, logistics.
Which we're already identifying. You just want to make your one collection for that year.
Right.
But it also could be just one signature product that you just mass scale, and then
I'm
you create
not saying
like
that it would have to be just the single collection. Like I could make the designs for a collection and then send it over to. I got a guy that I went to school with who owns a factory in LA now that we're talking about doing a project actually for next year. But you know, I could like send my patterns to him and just be like, yo, I want this made in like 5 pairs of this, 2 pairs of that, whatever, you know.
So
But if you were able to create like a signature design for a single product, then you can create the brand around that, and then that adds in the element of like you could talk to a manufacturer, and if this product blows up, then now you own that manufacturer, and now you're a brand manufacturing company. You have this audience, and you're getting a stable, sustainable income from that one selling product.
what do you think would be the thing that would really push, like based on like what you're trying to do, your vision, your like ideas and creativity, what do you like, I know it's hard to predict the future and everything, but do you think that there's something in your arsenal that really will stand out as something that could take you to that next level?
I think at this point, my work just needs to be put in front of the right people. And it has already. I know that, like, at least that there are bigger networks out there that know about me, which is enough for me to be like, okay, you know, like, I'm seen, like, my work is out there. People know who I am, whatever. But I guess it's just kind of, like, finding my customer and my niche, because I am such a changeable person, like with how I express myself. It's hard for me to like bring it down to, you know, these are the things that I'm going to produce and put out, because, you know, basically prior to now, I never had it in my mind that I needed to create for a consumer, because I was coming from the artistic standpoint of being, you know, wanting to solely express myself and put on a good show. But I've come to this point where I guess I'm ready to tap into where my market is and, you know, build a customer basis. And it's brands like Fashion Brand Company that I'm super inspired by them and what they do. And I think what's cool about them is how casual they keep it. They run with Capsule Collections, so they'll like, do a run of something, and once there's none left, and that's it. And seeing these companies pop up and being able to survive off of doing that, I'm like, I need to think more about ready to wear. Because ready to wear was never something that inspired me. Actually, in school, I was always so against doing the like ready to wear classes. They would be like, it's time to design work clothes for a woman in her 50s. What would that look like? And I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
I want to design like some Tim Walker photo shoots. Like, I don't want to be here drawing a blouse in navy blue, gray, and black.
Just a bit more basic kind of
yeah,
setups.
But I think I was thinking too strictly ready to wear in another brand's perspective at that point.
Good
I need
point.
to think ready to wear in my perspective, because at least for the next collection that I'm not quite going to talk about yet, because I'm still in the very, very baby stages of it, it will be a bunch of crazy prints and like, basic things like jeans and jean jackets, sweatsuits.
So more
but the
ready
print
to wear
is like
setup.
in your face and I feel like very me. And I think that's just how to start. I have to just kind of
So what it sounds like
make
is
clothes that I want to wear, I guess, because usually if you want something, someone else will want it too.
Right. Yeah.
It's like giving presents. If you like it, hopefully the other person's gonna like it.
yeah. And what it sounds like is like if you're thinking of it from the consumer's perspective, you're basically trying to emulate yourself and create a market that supports and believes in what you're trying to put out. So it's like, what would that audience look like, or what types of people do you think would connect best to the products that you're trying to put out? So you can still be yourself by also attracting people that you authentically connect with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think something that I wanted to piggyback off what you were saying before is that, especially with the pandemic happening, it's something that our generation hasn't seen. I mean, it's definitely our parents like lived in a time where like they went most of their life without anything like crazy like happening to the economy, is getting to a place where you like have to be able to function on a level of sustainability where you might not be able to do a show like
this year.
Like, guys, I think for the longest time people kind of got complacent, at least in the fashion world, where it's like, well, there's always going to be another show to happen, but it's like, well, this year proved like sometimes there isn't a show coming. Then what? And having that like system in place where it's like, I don't need a show to still be making stuff and getting stuff out there.
I am so mad. I'm so mad that I wasn't able to put out a show this year, because I was so excited. I wanted it to be a virtual runway show. I wanted it to be, COVID safe, masked up, all of that stuff. But again, my head was not there. Like, I go through phases. I kind of like go through like ebbs and flows with where I'm at with designing, and when I'm on top of my game is usually when I just got the inspiration for the new idea and the ideas are flowing and it's all coming naturally, it feels right, and then that's when I enter into like the work mode of like, okay, now I have all of the ideas sketched out and put into kind of like tech packs, at least in a sense that my own brain can understand. Now it's time to actually make that happen. And then, it's work. And then as soon as it comes back to the show, it's play. Because it's like the day of the show is one of the best days. Yeah, it's a lot of work, lugging an entire collection, talking back and forth with hair and makeup artists all day, making sure your vision is, happening, whatever. But it's so rewarding, that moment of like, you get to walk out after your collection walks, because then it's like everything's done.
Yeah.
Now I can party.
Right.
Like I could just walk out, either holding the hand of my last model or just like walking out behind my collection or in front or wherever, and people are cheering for me because like, this is the thing that I did. I did this. Right. It's a good feeling.
Definitely.
And it's, after that feeling of, being stuck in the work and the grind I kind of go into a phase of laziness of being like, okay, I partied. Now I have all this great collection to shoot, and I can just like have a bunch of photo shoots and post a bunch of pictures and like chill out for a little bit, which is kind of nice because then it's like, you know, it's like a cycle. It's like work and then
A little bit
show
of
and then
vacation,
play,
relaxation, and then
relax.
back to it.
Then inspiration comes in those modes when you're able to relax and have, you know, time for yourself. And that's when those things can flow. And I think the difference of this year, oh yeah, and this is why I'm so mad, is because the show that I was going to do, I wanted to put all boys in dresses and all girls in like suits and pants. And of course, Harry Styles has to go and steal the thunder, and they put him on the cover of Vogue in a dress as if now he's like the face of boys wearing dresses. And I'm like, ugh, if I had my runway show in September, like I said I was going to, I would have so many pictures of boys in dresses that I could put next to it and be like, oh yeah, you think you're original? No, I'm kidding. But like, I mean, whatever. Things like that happen.
I think it's more empowering if it's not a celebrity doing it. Because then it's just like, oh, well, that's just Harry Styles. He's just like comfortable in his skin.
Yeah.
It's like, why don't we get a bunch of people that you don't know doing it? Because then it's there's a different vibe to that.
Actually, Marcella did make a really good little like diptych of our pictures from when Jason. Hi, Jason. Shout out to Jason. Love you. I had him wear my book dress for a photo shoot, and she like edited it so that it was next to a picture of Harry, and we did that photo shoot in 2019, and that was obviously this year. And she was like, who did it better? Obviously everyone said that we did, but you know, people are nice and whatever.
Right.
But
I mean, it's all subjective anyways. Like,
it is. Fashion as a whole is just an entire paradox. But another thing that's hard to like, it's hard to say for sure. You know, I can't be like, they copied me, because ideas exist, you know. I think ideas are kind of like bubbles, and like we each have our own aura bubble in a sense, and thoughts can kind of bounce around between. That's why, like, you know, when you're in a group, maybe in close proximity to people like us right now, like one person may think something and then the other person says something very similar, you know.
right.
Like those kind of things just happen in human behavior, human culture.
Definitely.
And
well, there's
so,
also a lot of people pleasing, so it's just like
in fashion.
Well, probably in fashion.
Yeah.
Just in general, like people kind of hear like the vibe of the room, and even if they don't agree with it, they're like, oh, it's just easier to go in this way.
Wait, what do you mean?
Just like
just
the
let me
group,
have that thought.
Okay.
like group think.
Yeah.
Like people,
Yeah.
like fashion, for instance, perfect example. I'm wearing this. My friends all like appreciate what I wear, and then they also want to wear that because I'm wearing it, and then the domino effect.
Yeah, next thing you see, like, everyone's wearing semi-similar outfits.
And then it's a cult.
Yeah.
Oh.
And
Guys,
that's
we're not a
how-
cult, I swear.
And that's how the culture
This is a community.
gets born.
This is a community, not a commune. There's a difference.
When you were talking about the runway show stuff, you seem super passionate about it.
Oh, yeah, it's my favorite.
Have you ever thought about owning your own runway show?
No.
Like a runway house.
Yeah.
I know I
You only
could
run
teach people how
runways?
to walk. Like, I learned how to walk when I was
But like
Runways just
owning-
have-
modeling school.
like owning the
So cool.
business that does the runway show and the events, and then it's like a platform for what you were saying, like going out, having a good time, being creative, networking with people.
I would love that. No, I've never thought about that before. Like an event planner in a
Do
sense.
they have something like this in Syracuse?
I mean, there's individual event planners, but I don't know about
Like a place, like a
Yeah.
set place.
and then you could brand it too.
Well, what would you say the fashion culture is in Syracuse? Like, is it
Ooh.
small, big?
We're gonna go
like-
there. Okay, it's very small. I mean, it's just a microcosm of the entire city, so it's very small. Again, everyone knows each other. It's just kind of, I don't know. It's interesting because I think as models, everyone kind of infiltrates and knows each other more. Being on the designer side of it, it's more competitive. Like, you know, I'm trying to think of the last time I was in a show with multiple people. Yeah, you can't really find time during the day to like sit and chat with the other designers, because you're like, the last show I did, which was September of last year, I spent the majority of the day like finishing my collection. Like I was hand sewing eyeballs on the eyeball dress up until probably 30 minutes before we went on.
Oh shit.
Like I don't have time, you know, to sit there. And I realized that the girl who was sharing the space with me also went to FIT, so that was cool. We got like, you know, we exchanged Instagrams, and she's a talented designer. It was cool to meet her. But I guess the difference is like in the modeling industry, you have more time to sit around and hang out and chat all day. You know, like you're sitting in makeup, you're talking to the makeup artist, you're sitting in hair, you're talking to the hair artist, you're sitting waiting backstage, you're talking to the other models. It's easier to kind of network yourself. But I've also noticed that I can't really cross over, because I started in modeling. Fashion was an interest to me, and so I did.
We're coming back from a little intermission again because the SD card got full. So sorry about that.
That's whatever.
Yo.
Prepared.
We back.
Streams of consciousness get started and stopped at all times, always.
We be streaming.
Just let it happen.
Hashtag. I wish I
Also,
didn't
this has
say
been
that.
brought to you by Bindle Tea. Get your matcha at the McCarthy Mercantile.
Wildflowers.
And get
Shout out to
fucking
Michael John.
woke.
Get woke.
Get
and
woke.
Get
Say woke.
matcha.
And get matcha. 2 in 1. If you
Okay.
don't get woke, your money back is not guaranteed.
Okay, so I also haven't brought up this side of what I do. I also sell vintage. I think Syracuse
Ooh.
could be really cool having like some sort of L-Train vintage type of thing.
Like
you know?
Buffalo Exchange.
Whoa! Who's not on silent? Who is it?
Oh, it's because your speakers were mad loud.
Jesus Christ.
Technical difficulties.
Why don't you
ladies
say
and
that one more time?
Intermission number 3.
gents. Kyle needed a
So,
new beer.
Chloe, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the vintage side of your fashion sense?
Yes, I will. Well, obviously, the shopping at thrift stores since a young age has contributed to my love for older clothing.
Just spilled this all over me.
We're a
We're
real
a mess. We're
This
just
is
a
what
big hot
happens.
mess.
We get out of the flow and it's all goes to
We
shit.
all had too many beers. No, it's okay. This is
You
the
would
shit
think
people want to see.
55 episodes in, Kyle and I would like have this figured out.
Oh no, the SD card ran out.
Jesus. Amateurs.
It's fucking amateur. It's been amateur hour since the beginning. All right.
Well, luckily, 'cause
Vintage.
if I was on some professional show, I'd be like,
What is happening?
We real.
well,
Guys, it's
amateur.
all right.
We're all amateur together, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Uh,
Vintage. So about that vintage.
yeah. I think it's hard for me to find a line of what I want to do because I love vintage. I also love upcycling. I think Syracuse needs more shoppable stores. I mean, I am, you know, they put so much money into the mall when I really think that the money should be going places like North Salina Street and Armory Square.
Yeah, bringing the stores back to downtown.
I love working for small businesses. Right now I'm working at Syracuse Antiques. I also sell my vintage there. So come by, buy my stuff. Helps me out.
Support small business.
Support local and small business and all of the above.
Also, Destiny USA sucks.
It does. And it's all closing down. Again, the same thing with the fast fashion companies going out of business. These big department stores that used to be the source of almost everybody's garments or like where people would go to shop because it was the option that they had.
Bye-bye.
It's going away.
Jesus.
Sorry.
Kyle, do you care?
I don't think we can string it together, guys.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yeah, so Destiny
Lord and
USA.
Taylor has been going out of business. Macy's, JCPenney, all of those places. All of the dealers that I work alongside of at Syracuse Antiques, they come in and they tell me, you know, it's they're like, you know, you should go over there and have a bunch of mannequins that are on sale now because they are literally having a closeout store where everything that they had on display has to get out. Damn. And I'm like thinking about all of this open space that's going to be left there. Hey, like what?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, what are they going to do?
What are they going to do?
Do they get rid of
I'm
it?
not saying I want to move into the mall. Hell no. If anything, I'll have like, you know, a street side, whatever. I mean, who knows?
You're so right though. Like think about like even just think about like something like Great Northern Mall. That's still it's
Shopping
one floor,
town.
but it's still massive. Like it takes up a lot of square footage. Destined USA is like 3 floors of fucking taking up a lot of square footage. What is gonna go in there?
The only reasonable thing, in my opinion, that malls can be used for, especially ones that are already closed down and not being used for anything except for wasting heat and energy, is homeless shelters.
That or like
because like
old
it's
people
already
homes.
a giant, but yeah, that too. Some kind of just a place, a facility where
or a
people
co-work
in need
space.
could go.
Imagine that.
A massive co-work
That'd be
space.
dope.
Like the gear.
Yeah.
Yo, what if it was just?
I'm like,
what if they just converted them
30
into
people's
like?
enough.
True.
They could just convert it into like apartments.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but then that's still like.
But
you
do you
know,
want to
people
live in
are
an
paying-
old mall?
No. Also, people are
Good
still
parking
paying.
spaces.
Like, I think
Plenty
if
of those.
it's turned into a like even like a soup kitchen or something to help people in need, like, what is it doing sitting there? You know, still using the heat and electric bill.
True.
I don't think they
Nothing.
any of those people planned ahead.
I have an
They were
idea.
just like malls are the future.
You
Malls
tear
are the
down
past.
mall and you just put solar panels in the parking lot area.
Well, so that
I
so
don't
the
know.
other thing about the other thing about Destined USA and
In Syracuse, you really think the cloudiest city,
True.
the vitamin D is the thing we're gonna ask for? No.
the other thing to
Power the
consider
entire city
about
Off of the one day that it's sunny.
Destined
Yay.
USA is built on swampland. It used to be like a sewage treatment plant before they built the mall on
So
it.
it's literally
It's
a
sink.
piece of shit.
So ready for this? The foundation of the building has hydraulic pumps holding the base of the building up so that it doesn't sink into the ground.
Nice.
Yeah, so like I wasn't planning on
Seriously.
going to the mall.
That's
Now
a-
I'm never
that's
gonna
a-
go back to the mall.
So literally, when they
kidding. I
if
mean, not really.
if in fact Destined USA goes to shit in a handbasket and like no one invests in it because it's not even that like nice of a looking building, it's going to be left to either crumble into the ground or they're going to have to deconstruct it or like do something with it because it's
This
gonna
is why I'm saying put the
so
money
fucked.
into things like downtown.
yeah, stop building fucking massive things that take people away from downtown and
You know
bring
what it
people
is?
downtown.
This is wrapping it back around to the beginning of our conversation. I think it's like due to systemic racism that the money is not being put in these certain areas because, you know, over by the areas that I'm thinking of, it's like, you know, the north side, it's not paid attention to. And it's really frustrating because it's like that used to be poppin'. Back in like the 1800s, there was a trolley that ran down North Salina Street. And like you could get through the whole city on Salina.
yeah.
And now it's like, just like the
shit
government
show.
doesn't give a crap about it anymore because it's pretty much probably not been touched since then. Because maybe having to do with something that you were talking about like people being pushed out of their housing and having to move, you know, further out in the city. It's like no fault of their own. And also nobody wants to help out the area because it's low income. And, you know,
But that's the other thing.
that's the thing is the people with the money in the city don't see the necessity of building up these areas that are maybe lower income because it doesn't benefit them directly.
Right, but it's like if even the people living in lower income areas, right, predominantly poor people, even if it was just like investing in making those homes nicer, updated, making sure that they're not crumbling for these people and not raising the rent prices on them. Be like, those people.
That's never going to happen though because they don't give a fuck.
Well,
Sadly.
in an ideal world where there's ethical people buying property and then having reasonable rent rates. The thing is, people who are poor, the reason that there's higher crime rates in poorer places is because They live in crappy living situations, right? So they live
They
in a house that no
literally
one gives a fuck about.
Don't have enough to afford to be able to purchase their own groceries, so
Right.
they steal food so they can eat.
They're worrying
I've
about
been in that
food.
place before.
They're worrying
I'm
about
not gonna
food.
lie. I have
and-
stolen food before because I was so hungry that I needed to eat.
Yeah.
I
And-
understand. Like, I can't say I understand. I take that back. But, you know, like, imagine that every single day and waking up every day with this fear in the back of your mind of, like, how am I going to eat today? How am I going to feed my family today? What am I going to do? Eventually, any human person would break and just go say, fuck the man, fuck all these corporations.
Yeah.
I'm going to take what they are offering because it's already overpriced anyway. Like, the prices are raised exponentially to what it's actually
and
worth.
on top of this, you have people who are poor living in houses that are dilapidating. No one's updating
I've
them.
never heard that word before. Dilapidating.
Yes. And we have the issue of inner cities being food deserts, meaning there is no grocery store within a certain radius of their living situation. And these people don't have cars, or at least not a lot of them. So it's like, it makes it inherently more difficult to survive, and it becomes like a fight or flight mentality.
Exactly.
And that's the problem. We have to be helping.
Keeping people compressed down in this fearful mind state is what is wanted, because it keeps the control. Like, you're able to control people in this fearful mind state much easier than if they were able to support themselves
And on
and
top
they
of
felt
that,
stable.
Because we're in a fear mindset, we're actually looking to the people that are controlling us for help. It's fucked up. Like, this is probably controversial, but like the government, for instance, them giving us stimulus money, people are like, oh yes, we're getting free money and this is great and everything like that. But they are also the ones that are in control, that put us in the place where we needed to get stimulus money. So it's
But
like,
also, it's a
we're
system that
trying
we're
to
buying into because we all pay taxes. So the fact that it's even a question that we don't, that we aren't allowed another one when we may be entering into a second a second lockdown.
Yeah, right.
It's like, that shouldn't even be a question. Why is it still a question?
I kind of misspoke. So like,
Sorry.
With COVID, for instance, obviously that was the reason why we needed to get stimulus money. But like, look at everything that was like shit hitting the fan before COVID, and like the wage gap and all this other systemic like social issues that were happening is partially because of the government and their control over the people and stuff like that. So it's like,
I think it's like totally because of the government.
potentially. So it's like they're creating issues in us, and on top of that, they're trying to be a savior to the people.
So they're creating the issue that we confide in them to
Yeah,
fix,
and it's
but
just
they're
like
the ones who
some
made
weird,
the issue.
It's a weird dependency thing.
control.
And then us as individuals, we can't get empowered if we're just constantly dependent on the system to help us. And we can't go out and feel like we have the freedom to become like self-actualized and stuff like that if like we're constantly seeking that validation and support from outside sources, you know?
Yeah.
Even though I think this is something that I noticed in my time in New York, in the different places that I lived. First off, I am very lucky and privileged to be able to express myself the way that I do. Because, you know, even though
That's
are all
a very
things,
good observation, by the way.
Thank you. These are all things that come from thrift stores, but at the same time, you know, I know what I'm looking for. I purposefully buy things that look expensive because I want to feel expensive. Who doesn't? Who doesn't want to feel nice? But at the same time, you know, people who exist their entire lives, existence, fearing stability and being able to eat and all of those things, you know, shelter, you don't even have the luxury to be able to think about self-expression, like, you know,
'Cause
creating
you're in
yourself.
survival mode.
Exactly. And even with things as simple as you talked about grocery stores a little bit, like the bodegas that you would come across in certain neighborhoods, like it was very obvious which neighborhoods were lower income, because the items that were provided in those stores were completely different. You know, there you'd go to a market in Williamsburg, there would be fresh vegetables and fruits and all these different options of crazy things. And then out at a bodega, you know, like deeper in Brooklyn, you find only canned goods, which that is like, we know the preservatives in canned goods is not good for your body. And so, and all of those things compiling and adding to your mental health as well, like your nutrition not being able to be at, like, you know, a standard that it could be in other neighborhoods, affects your mental state, which in turn will continue this fear mind state of, like, you know, it just keeps you low. It keeps you down.
Yeah. And it's even harder as an artist. And this, again, might be controversial, but, like, as an artist, you're trying to pursue, like, this abundance, right, in yourself. And that creates this state of mind where you need, obviously, extra resources to be abundant. So it's like you're not only trying to meet your basic needs, but on top of that, you're trying to progress and be able to achieve something that maybe not the average American is trying to achieve. So it's like even a double, like, fuck up, basically. It's
double
like
whammy.
It's like your ambitions are higher than maybe the average American, and on top of that, you're starving. So it's like even more of a weight on your mental health.
You're still getting that, you know, external perception of yourself that, like, oh, you know, you look a certain way, you dress a certain way, you must have money, blah, blah, blah.
And you're not free.
Yeah, it's a very interesting place to be. And also, I've talked to you about this before, like the kind of like isolation that comes with being an individual, that compiled on both of those things as well, where like externally may be perceived as, you know, having a certain level of success or money or whatever, when in reality you're dealing with similar stresses as the people who may be perceiving you like that, as well as the isolation of individuality. It's just like,
and it's like, if you become famous too, it's like everyone knows who you are, but not actually who you are. And they're not valuing you for like you as a human. They're valuing you because of like what product you are. Right. You're literally a product of the system, you know, but that's what is like allowing you to get the fame and fortune to be able to like survive. And it's like this huge gap of like starving to like fucking stardom. And it's like there's no in between. Oh man.
And it's 1 in a million. It's so rare for that to happen, because there's so many people that are grinding and that we don't hear their stories. There's people that are going to be grinding their whole life and will never make it there. And that's just the reality of the situation. But like, it's, you know, that doesn't mean that they should stop. Right. I don't think that there is, like, especially music artists, like, there's never going to be enough music in the world. Like,
because there's always a new take on.
And even like with music specifically, it's like you can create your own niche kind of, and not have to be top 40 of the charts to be able to still be successful to a certain extent.
You get trapped if you sell out, basically, because now you are trying to fit an image that you really aren't. Yeah. And you're just trying to get as much fame and fortune as you possibly can to potentially.
Yeah.
That's a blanket statement.
That's actually something that I fear, because I've been toiling with the idea of just being
just don't mind me.
I'm trying. Okay, I'm toiling with the idea of being an artist, a music artist, because there is a lot that comes with it, you know. I need to make sure I'm in a place where I am fully doing it because it's something that I love to do, something that I want to do, and something that I'm able to create for myself. Because if I was ever bribed by a record label with a certain amount of money to be signed on with them and then have to create this character version of myself, I don't know if I, like, eventually, like I said, since like being the chameleon, ever-changing kind of whatever fashion entity, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that, because I would need this constant change, this like moving forward and creating myself and being something new. And The reason I haven't really brought it up yet is because I haven't even started yet. I know music.
We're helping change that.
Yeah, we're gonna make some music together, y'all. Pretty soon, we'll have a track out. Maybe, I don't know. Will we?
It will happen.
Yeah, no, actually,
By the end of this season.
Chloe and I were working with our friend Ian on a song, and Chloe and I kind of soloed it, or duoed it, I should say, for a little bit. But yeah, no, we'll get because the thing is, once you get one out there, you're like, you get that itch to like keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And something I talked to Kyle about is like the way we're doing it is we're not necessarily holding back on sharing the music we're making, specifically because, one, just because you don't think that a certain song that you do is like ready or whatever, but you are like done with it, doesn't mean that there's not someone out there who might really fuck with it, who might be that important person who's like, I like what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you show me more? And also like it's that progression, showing people like how
your
each song
ideas
is getting better and
expanding.
better,
Totally.
month over month, year over year, and you're like, holy shit, you got like all these songs, and maybe the first ones you made weren't like the best, but like I like to see like how you turned into the artist you are for the
Definitely.
true fans, you know?
No,
who come
yeah,
out of the woodwork.
it's totally all about growth. I think what intimidates me about getting involved with music so late in the game is that like
Late in the game, girl. What are you, 22, 23,
you always take a year off.
24, 27? Are you
Andy,
30?
Andy was trying to dad me the other day. Let's talk about that. He was trying to dad me the other day and then realized he was only a year older than me. So I'm like, you can shut up. And
I'm way older than you.
Shut the fuck up.
I'm like a whole year older than you. Like I'm a junior and you're a sophomore.
I know I'm so much more wise than you.
Right. Right. But yeah.
I don't think there's necessarily I think at some point there is an age where like you might not have enough time to like really make a name for yourself in something like the music industry.
When you're 80.
But like if you're sub 40 age wise and you're like thinking about getting into it, you have so much time.
No, honestly, I rebuttal that because you could be in retirement age and you'll have actually more time to make music.
You're right.
But what I'm saying is that
What if your voice is bad by
because of
then?
your age and like your energy level and ability to create as much and network and go to like all these things, an 80-year-old is
And
not
risk of heart attack.
like the thing is you're just way better suited to make a name for yourself in any industry at a younger age.
Okay, this is what
I
I'm saying.
guess.
So as
the
being
marketing,
involved
Yeah, just being more savvy with it.
being involved in modeling at such a young age, they tell you pretty much straight up that if you're not model height and size by age 14 that you're not going to make it.
Fuck them.
Also,
I know,
that's
but this
fucked
is
up. What
but
the
this it's true in the fashion world and how fucked up it is true. And there are models that are like top models and they're probably 17 years old. And you know, they're like world famous and they're traveling the world and
The
they're
thing
getting
is,
all this
though,
work,
like,
but they're like babies.
Why is the model body a tall, skinny girl?
It's all, I mean, that is
You know how many tall,
all
skinny girls I know?
changing, Finally.
Like no one.
Exactly, because the way fashion started was, well, not started, because it's, you know, developed for centuries and
Right.
become what it is because of that. But it was, you know, it is a luxury at the end of the day. And I think that it kind of developed into that because that is such a rarity, like, you know, someone tall and skinny and, you know,
So let's find
model-esque.
all of them. And
Yeah,
put them in
essentially.
One place.
which
But it is rare, like in the everyday of living to.
yeah, which
Like,
is
how many girls
also
do you know
why
that are
so many
6 foot plus.
Yeah.
but which is also
many.
contributing to all of, you know, how women feel about themselves. I remember
Yeah, it's
looking at
Body
magazines
dysmorphia.
as a child, like as a 14-year-old, looking at these models like I need to look like them. Like that is so unrealistic. And this is the
Yeah.
one thing that I'm very proud of the fashion industry for this taking off so quickly, but the body positivity movement has been so amazing. Like, yes, okay, we're still at a point where there's token plus size models. And, you know, it's a step. There's a long way to go. But I think for the most part, like, the fact that it's even a conversation happening, if you told me in 2007 that it was going to be trendy to be thick and have a big ass or like have some healthy weight on you, I wouldn't believe you. There was this meme I saw that was actually making fun of that exact thing. It was like, in 2007, does my butt look big? And it's like, yes. And then she's like crying. And then it's like it was like 2020, does my butt look big? And she's like,
hell yeah.
Yeah. Which is interesting. And it's also, you know, contributing to how women feel about themselves now, because it has the same effect. You know, there's still a standard. There's still this like hourglass, extremely curvy standard that is the ideal of beauty right now. And it's not just the fashion industry, it's the beauty industry as well. And
Right.
plastic
Makeup,
surgery
things like that.
industry, all of that. And it's very interesting to see it grow and develop, but I think that it is most telling that it has been the same for so many years, and within the past 5-10 years, it's really changed. Like, gone from being, you know, I was not able to be a runway model no matter how much I wanted to be, because I have half an inch off of what the
Half
cutoff.
an inch?
I'm half an inch
Oh.
too short to be a high fashion model.
no.
But then of course it was 5'7" in like, I think whatever, like 80s, whatever. And then it's like 5'9" now, and like 6 foot plus for guys. And it's just like, if you can walk, you can walk. So why do
Yeah.
you need a height cutoff? You know?
Yeah, why does height matter?
There are so many.
Why does any of it matter?
It doesn't. Nothing matters.
It's all fucking. It's just.
But like on that thought
Bullshit.
process, it's like it's a double-edged sword too, because we're moving into this age where you can be more yourself, right? And you can just showcase who you are authentically. But at the end of the day, you might still be pursuing your authentic self. But if you're doing it in a way where you're trying to seek validation from other people, it still creates that insecurity in yourself. So it's more elusive.
Totally.
And it's like, at the end of the day, maybe the goal is to just not seek validation at all. But we can't do that because of how society is with, if you want to be a model and you want to make money, you have to seek validation. You have to market yourself.
Totally.
And
I
it's
think
external.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because I've been struggling with that a lot lately. Just like even wanting to market myself or put myself out there as a brand, like it's so much to think about. It's so
Yeah.
much pressure.
Because
Like,
then your day to day becomes consumed with your personal image as opposed to just living your life. you know?
exactly. That's
But-
why I've been off of Instagram for a while.
But, and I'm sorry to challenge you,
No.
but that is even a fear of validation. Because if you were fully self-confident, not trying to bring you down, but just, but, and this is everything, I think everyone kind of struggles with this, but like,
Yeah, of course.
if you're obviously, yeah, we're human, right?
yeah.
And this needs to be talked about.
Human emotion is insecurity.
Exactly. It's normal. It's natural because we are a part of a community and we want to feel valued. But at the same time, it's like we are on social media or whatever, and if you're not posting, is it because you are actually afraid of what people think about you? And if that's the case, then there's still a part of you trying to seek validation. But if you were like self-confident, then you could post whatever the fuck you want and not give a fuck. People would hate it. People love it, whatever. And even that, it's like, don't get high on your own supply even if people love it, because that's a dependency too. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not a double-edged sword. It's a quadruple
It's fucked.
thousand-edged sword.
It's a mind fuck.
But this is the whole thing.
It's like how sharks have layers of teeth.
Like-
It's just fuck.
So I got this new, not new, it's a very old book. It's the Pictorial Encyclopedia of Fashion. This dealer from Syracuse Antique found it at an auction for me for $5. And I've been reading it like it's my Bible. It's very interesting because it has like a 1960s perspective on the history of fashion.
Oh, that's cool.
But anyway, there's this one line in it that says something like, and thus is the paradox of fashion, is that the trend that comes into place ends up being its own downfall. So it's like, it's all of these curling waves
It's
of like
made to
something is
fall.
coming into fashion and then everyone owns it and then nobody wants it anymore. And then
Yeah.
the 10-year, the 20-year,
Where did
and the
that
40-year
base-
cycle happens over and over and over again. That's why they say in fashion, nothing is new, which is true. to an extent, because
Based
nothing
on-
is new based on like, things like styles come back, things are repeating themselves, but in a new way, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that nobody has
No
ever
idea is
dressed
truly
the
new.
way that people dress today. But also
Right.
that it is very reminiscent of the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, all pushed up into modern.
Have you read anything in this book that tells you kind of when that started? When, like, this cycle, the cyclical nature of fashion really started to become a thing?
I would say, like 1910, but fashion historians are probably going to be like, oh my God, what are you talking about? Because it all, like, it all goes back, but it just was longer periods of time. Because of the
That's-
digital age
yeah.
and because of
Now it's
everything
like-
moving quicker,
Shit's
the fashion industry has also been moving quicker. So, like, at least in the century prior, things would move at about a 10-year basis. So that's why we have such a specific idea of what 1910s looked like, 1920s, 30s, 40s,
Now it's like
whatever.
year to year.
It's every year. Yeah, seriously.
every season.
Yeah.
It's just like next winter. It ain't gonna
The
be
Every
season-
week.
Every week.
The people
Jesus.
following the seasons are mostly just fashion people, like the people in the industry who are like, I need to have the next big thing. But like for the most part, nowadays it's moving by a yearly, what's next, what's new, which is also still a lot to keep up with because we used to have 10 years. Now we have one to get all our shit together. Like, what?
I think at the end of the
What's
day,
the next big thing?
the moral of the story is think for yourself and stop trying to follow trends.
And find markets that can foster that mindset and help you get away from that like group think, like this is how fashion has to be, and it's like only because you're in the one place where everyone thinks that way.
That's what they taught me at FAT. They taught me that this is the way it is and that it's not
This is the
changing.
way. Anyone
And
who watches the
honestly, that's the whole reason why I dropped out. I dropped out of college. I'm not proud of it, but I also think that it just wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. They
it's a waste
like
of
to
money
make
if
themselves
it's
seem
not.
like they're
You
this
saved a lot of
super
money.
fashion forward school, like they know everything about the industry and have all of these industry contacts and everything. That's just not true. They teach you about an industry that they existed in 20 years ago. And I was actually quite literally the last group of students that was on the curriculum that was started in the 1970s. So I actually learned the old curriculum at FIT. The semester after me, the spring 2016 or the fall 2016 kids, they got all new digital curriculum. It was like literally the next semester, which is, I don't know, kind of fitting for me because like I'm so obsessed with vintage and like learning about the past of fashion, but at the same time it's kind of counterproductive because while in my time there, I was kind of like pushed into believing that like this is the way the world works and nothing's ever gonna change and there's nothing you can do. Like professors would pretty much laugh in my face when I said I wanted to be ethical and sustainable. And now there is such a wave of that, and I kind of like want to go back and be like, I told you so.
Yeah.
Like obviously I'm not gonna do that, but I don't know. It's just it's a lot to keep up with. It's a lot. The industry is so quick moving and it's not sustainable. It can't continue to support itself in the way that it has been. And I think people are finally becoming aware of that. The warehouse in Bangladesh thing, that happened 8 years ago. 8 years. Like, we're finally coming to terms with the fact that our society is fucked up and that there needs to be some big changes all over all industries in order for things to be better for the people.
Yeah.
We need a sustainable society.
A sustainability revolution.
Revolution.
It's on the verge. It's on
Well,
the horizon.
you know-
We're like in
Stay
the
woke.
guys, we are the revolution. What are you talking about? It's already happening. We're pushing it. Like
We are the ones. We are the people.
Yeah.
Where all like the celebrities are just like tapped out of reality and they're like singing that shit.
no, I really do believe that though. Like I may sound crazy, But
I think we're like on the
No, I
forefront
think
of like what's happening.
I'm very happy, and I'm applauding you so much so that you're speaking out on all these issues and not being fearful.
Preach that shit.
I'm
Because-
very fearful to talk about it because the slightest wrong
Okay,
thing you
fair.
can say could offend
Fuck 'em,
someone.
fuck 'em.
Fuck them.
But I have tried my
On this
hardest.
podcast, we say fuck them. Ain't no haters gonna hate on this podcast.
No, I'm serious though. Like speaking out about like the Black Lives Matter movement is uncomfortable for me. I can't say that it's not. As a white person, talking about, you know, like obviously Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives fucking matter. You can't say it enough. But I feel like, you know, this is the first year of my life that I've realized this is something that I can actually speak out about. This is the first year of my life that I've realized I have enough of a voice that I can say something and people are going to listen to it.
Right.
And that's, again, tying it back all around. Why I originally even got into fashion is because it is expression and being able to say something without saying anything at all. And so, you know, maybe for the majority of my life prior, I felt as though, you know, the only sole form of expression for me, since I couldn't use my voice, was to put on some crazy clothes and feel good about it. Now I'm like, I can wear those crazy clothes and have people like that and also have something to say about it.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that I can do that with my next collection. Put some words on some clothes, make people think. Because fashion is politics. Fashion is everything. Everything is everything. So
Culture.
you can always tie it back around, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really what's said.
You
I like
guys
how
are
you, like,
stumped now.
You just
Hey!
like tied that in a bow and just was like,
That was it.
I think that was a good ending to the podcast.
That was a good enough one for you guys to be like, okay, cut.
all right, Chloe.
And
Is
let's
there
wrap it up.
is there anything that we didn't touch on that you wanted to add to this, or do you feel like we kind of covered everything that you wanted to talk about?
I mean, for the most part, yeah, we could probably do another one because I always could talk about fashion and how much it sucks and how much needs to change.
We should do this podcast again after you released a collection,
Okay,
and then
yeah.
we
Yeah,
can
talk
just
about that.
get your response on how it went. And
That'll
go from there.
probably be after February of next year because I'm
Yeah.
hoping to do a
We'll
spring-summer
stay in
release. Yeah, I mean, I see you guys every fucking day, so
Yeah.
we literally
we
do
only
this.
cook dinner every day together.
Yeah, me and Kyle always cook dinner together, and I'm always in Andy's room at the end of the night, so it's just like, you know,
Yeah.
this is like normal.
Be careful how you.
But like we
phrase
have
that.
mics. This is normal, but we have mics and cameras this time.
Yeah, that's true.
Uh,
Where can people find you, stuff you're doing?
mhm.
You know, plug yourself. This is your plug. This is your plug. The plug moment of the
Oh God,
podcast.
I got scared. Okay.
This plug moment has been brought to you by. No, I'm just kidding. Just go.
By Tecate,
Tecate,
your true
the
Mexican
superior
beer.
Mexican cerveza.
You're not even holding the. You have to hold. This is
I showed
Bush
you.
Light.
basic modeling, Andy. You hold the logo towards the camera.
You mean not the
Basic.
nutritional facts, the part that everyone
He's
should
like,
care about?
he's like, Tecate.
Which ready? This has 142 calories, 14 grams of carbohydrates, 1 gram of protein.
Get your weight up.
Get
Why
your
do
weight
they
up.
have protein in
You trying to get
beer?
protein? Drink some Tecate.
Gross. I don't even
I know you
remember
gotta
what
get
I was
Thriller
gonna
Nation
say.
on board. He'll be an ambassador for Tecate. 1 gram of protein.
Yeah.
Let's get it.
Right, I
Plug
was
it.
so
So now that
myself.
we've totally just stolen the fucking spotlight off you, please tell.
Anyway, this is about me.
please tell the people about yourself, Chloe.
Okay. So my Instagram handle right now is Schnellmode, Schnell mode, like Edna mode. Yes. I successfully killed Jane. Woohoo! Yay!
I don't know what that means.
My prior name was Jane by Chloe
Oh.
Schnell, and I think it's interesting when, especially music artists, like have a certain persona
Pseudonym.
that they have out, and it's like they consider it themselves like killing that version of themselves. It was, in a sense, an ego death, or like, you know, this realization of like moving on to a bigger business type of mindset. But yeah, Jane is dead. Schnellmode is the new way.
Get the fuck out of here, Jane.
Which,
on the
by the
wave.
way, means
Get the fuck out of here,
this
Jane.
is my, so okay. This is my reason for changing my name to this, which I think you guys would kind of like because it's an oxymoron. So it's like Schnellmode is fast fashion in German, but like the basis of the company. It's also my last name, Schnell, but like the basis of the company would be the opposite of a fashion brand. So it's kind of just like
Fuck the man.
Yeah.
Big F you.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that I can buy my DBA in that before anyone else takes it, but we'll see.
Well, don't
We'll
don't
see.
spread that.
Get a website if
Exactly.
you're
I'm
going to.
like,
as quick as you
cut
can.
that part out of the podcast. Yeah. No, I'm working on the website.
So, we always end the show in a very particular way. And everyone that we've had on has answered the same question, except for the first maybe 4 or 5 people before we started doing it. But the majority of people have done this. And it's to answer one simple, but maybe not simple question. And I know we didn't get super like meta and deep about like philosophies of life and shit in a way, but totally fine. But this is our chance to get there. The question is, what does it mean to you to be human?
Buckle up,
Interesting.
folks.
We're about to go in. Keep your hands inside the vehicle at all times. Enjoy the ride.
To Be Human by Chloe Schnell.
Will be published.
I think to be human is to be authentic to yourself, to your own feelings and emotions and wants and needs, and to not run from that, because there's nothing that makes you feel more inhuman than ignoring those feelings and going into a panic state of not being able to control your body due to some sort of stress caused by
The man.
you going against your own will or your own emotion, your own whatever it is that you're dealing with. So the moments that I feel most human are in moments of vulnerability and joy and all of those extreme emotions that, we all experience, sometimes on a daily basis, sometimes just once in a blue moon. But I think this whole fear of vulnerability that we have in our society needs to just be completely let's just get rid of that, because we're all insecure for one reason or another. But sometimes what you need in order to break through within yourself, within relationships, whatever that may be, is the ability to be vulnerable with yourself, with other people. And,
It's the negative emotions that society deems that you actually need to feel to go
Exactly.
through the holistic experience.
100%.
yeah, everyone's always like, oh, good vibes only. And like,
Be
is
angry.
afraid of crying and anger and all that. I cry like a lot, and not for bad reasons. Like sometimes I cry because I'm happy, but the idea that crying is seen as a weakness or as a negative, like, oh, you're sad, I need to make something better. Like, no, sometimes all you need is a good cry. Like if you're feeling like you just gotta do it, sometimes you
Yeah.
just gotta do it, and then afterwards you laugh because it's like, wow, I was just feeling like shit, but now I'm not anymore, and this is great. And sometimes the laugh after a good cry is better than the tears after good laughter. I mean, not sometimes, all the time for me personally. Like if I'm
Where you laugh off the issue and then you end up crying about it anyways. and then you're
Exactly.
like, fuck.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of that, of being able to be vulnerable, open up, and have those hard emotions come out, and still, realize that, like, we're all just human. You're going to come back from it. Like, this isn't going to be forever. Whatever. Life goes on.
That was beautiful.
Wow. Eloquently
you.
said. Chloe, thank you so much for finally making it on the show.
Yay.
Like we said, we'll
Thank you so
definitely
much for
have you
having
back.
me, both of y'all.
um,
It feels weird, like, thanking you guys for hanging out with me, because we're always hanging out, but thank you.
This is a
well,
privilege.
it's fun to switch up the hangout a little bit.
You're gonna have to pay us for this.
Oh, God.
But yeah, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I'm definitely excited to see like where your fashion goes and everything after COVID, because weirdly enough, we met you like during COVID, or
No,
like
not during, like, a
right
month before, like,
yeah,
2
right
months
before
before.
shit like hit the fan. So
I swear it happened all on purpose. Like, Rick got everyone in here, like, purposefully right before some crazy
Hey.
stuff goes down, so that, like, we're all just one
He
big
knew.
giant social experiment.
yeah, I mean, that's a
And it worked
That's
because we've
definitely
had
an
some
understatement.
crazy stuff go down here.
we sure have.
That's for a
But,
different podcast.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. We'll talk about that another time.
But yeah, definitely stay tuned with stuff that Chloe's doing. She's definitely gonna do some cool shit, and we're just like
Thank you.
really happy that you're here and
Thanks, y'all.
bringing some new flavor to the Cuse area.
Yeah, I'm excited for all the music videos we're gonna make in the future.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. All right, and on that note, we end.
Kill.
3, 2, 1.